same marks, scoops, right?
It's the same.
But I love this, you know, the idea of the story is like, this is your trench, Johnson. Take your pounding stone. This is where you work.
Yeah.
And so each guy just sits here for his entire life. And digs. So I draw a line down the corner, and you'll notice that giant block goes around the corner.
Oh my God. It's like you're showing off.
Then you go in with your magic granite flattening tool, whatever that is, and you remove all that granite. Now you have 4 blocks that go around corners.
I think part of our thing is like we have no idea.
Snake Bros. Wait, how do you guys do your intro? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and serpents, angels and demons.
That's right.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent. We are on the Danny Jones podcast.
This has been a long time coming, fellas.
Yes.
I'm psyched to have you guys in here today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, really glad.
Yeah, and thank you for helping me solve my audio issues just now. We just spent the last 30 minutes talking about audio problems.
Kyle is a wizard.
I love the studio.
Thank you.
This is great.
Thank you.
I'm jealous of your wall back there. I want one of those.
The foam blocks?
Yeah.
I got some extras I can give you guys.
We're gonna fly home with this giant bag.
So, I need you guys to tell me what you guys know. I know you guys have the secrets.
Well, let's see. Should we start with where we come from on this stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, how did you guys start your podcast? Tell me the whole origin of the Snake Bros.
Okay, so the beginning of the investigation into this kind of mystery happened because we actually got into an accident. When was it? Was it 2002?
Yeah, one or
It was a
two.
long
I think it was
time ago.
2002.
Yeah, so basically it was a really, really bad car accident. Before that, we were just rocking and rolling, we were playing music. We were actually, the car accident happened because we were coming back from a band practice late at night, and but this guy was drunk, and he just came over onto our side of the road, and we had a head-on collision at 60 miles an hour. So it was really bad. It broke my back, did a whole bunch of other damage to me. The car's burned to the ground. Bullets were flying everywhere because we were in Texas and we had ammo in the car.
Lots of ammo.
Yeah, the cops and the fire trucks, they all had to leave, and everybody had to hit the deck because it's like bullets are flying.
Because the car was on fire?
Yeah, the car started burning, and then the ammo started going off, and
Holy shit.
yeah.
We had all of our guitars and amps in there too, and they burned.
Yep.
It was terrible.
Yeah. So then I spent a long time in the hospital in recovery. And it was one of those deals where they're like, well, you may never walk again, all this kind of stuff, because my spine had basically exploded, my lower back. The L3 vertebrae was a burst fracture into 27 pieces. And Kyle had a bunch of damage too. He was driving, I was in the front passenger seat. So the seat belt cut me from, my upper right shoulder all the way down to my hip, like I had got cut with a sword. So broke my clavicle, ribs, all the way down. So I was really damaged. And then I was in recovery for a long time, hobbling with a cane, couldn't really go anywhere, couldn't really do anything. And after I had read every fiction book I had again and played every video game I had again, I was like, I just want to, I want to read some interesting, mysterious stuff. And I started going online and just looking up, let's check out the pyramids. Let's look at ancient civilizations. I know there's mysteries involved in this. And then I started to understand, holy crap, there is a lot of fascinating stuff that I've never really been aware of just in this stuff. Just the first time I saw the interior diagram of the Great Pyramid, and you understand that most of this huge stone triangle doesn't seem to have anything in it. There's just these passageways and these little rooms, and you're like, they built this entire thing and that's all that's inside there. Maybe there's other stuff, So I started getting interested in that. I started looking at out of place artifacts, just objects that people have claimed to have found or have been found in places where they shouldn't be. Something that might imply transatlantic trade a long time ago. Some people have, coins, very ancient coins in the Americas. And, so it would be in a time where supposedly nobody was making coins or even using metal, right? Just stuff like that. And then, Kyle and I are hanging out, and I'd start going to him and telling him, dude, have you seen this inside of the pyramid? You know, have you looked at this? Like,
So Kyle, what happened to you during that accident? How fucked up did you get?
It was mostly whiplash.
Okay.
But I mean, I was suffering from like a lot of pain, and I was going to all these doctors, had MRIs done, did physical therapy, and I'm trying to, they were trying to figure out why am I in so much pain.
Did your spine explode too?
No,
No?
no broken bones.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you wearing a seatbelt or no?
Yeah.
You were. But you didn't have the seatbelt cut like your brother?
No, well, see, what happened to him is one of the big amplifiers in the back flew up and hit his seat,
Oh.
and it just shoved the whole seat forward.
yeah. So he had hit
So against the seatbelt.
yeah, he hit the brakes, and your seatbelt locks. So I'm sitting back when the seatbelt locks, and then this giant speaker stack hits the back of my seat and jams it forward, and the
Yeah.
seatbelt was locked. So it just cut me.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
basically, yeah, it's we're still dealing with all that.
Yep.
It's
How long did it take you guys to like get back on your feet and like start moving around normally?
for me, it was literally like a week, and then I was back at work, and we were we were working on land development, so it's
right.
hard
But-
labor outdoors.
But he had long-term tissue damage that no one was really aware
That's
of.
what I'm saying. Like within a month, I couldn't hardly move.
Yeah.
So
You know
it
how
was like-
whiplash will affect you? You'd be like, I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And then 2 or 3 days later, you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I can't sit
Right.
up. Yeah. So like one of the things that we found out later with him is he had his right foot slammed on the brake when the impact happened. And that jolt went up his leg, hyperextended his knee, hit his hips and twisted it. And that entire twisting motion went all the way up his spine and into his neck and did tissue damage all the way up. It takes a long time to manifest.
It's basically like they call it arthritis, because when you get a severe injury to the spine or to your bones, like just not severe injury so much as like just something real hard on it. Like bull riders get this. They get like an early onset arthritis called traumatic arthritis. That's what I got in the spine.
Right.
But it was almost instantaneous. It begins from that moment. So
Yeah. But I remember, I
I still climb through a pyramid though.
yeah.
Still climb through a pyramid.
It hurts a little more than it should, but we can still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we went, eventually we were going snowboarding again, eventually.
Right.
Yeah. It's everything is harder,
yeah.
right? You're not nearly as,
Don't take as big a chances
Yeah.
as before, which is
Right.
kind of good.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't jump off this
yeah,
cliff.
I probably shouldn't try that jump on my snowboard anymore.
And then you guys get rear-ended on the way to the podcast.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I was. This is the thing. I'm holding my phone like this. We were looking for a restaurant, and we get rear-ended. It just flies out of my hand and just hits me in the face.
Yeah.
Like, dude, okay.
Yeah.
Even a passenger, you shouldn't be holding your
Oh
phone in
my
your face.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that person that was behind you was probably a plant following you, CIA plant, because
Yeah.
we got to show everybody.
Oh, yeah.
My father-in-law was driving down the beach this morning, right 5 minutes away from here, and he sends me photos of Mobile Tactical Operations Center for the U.S. Space Force.
It looks like the Star Trek emblem.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Mobile Tactical Operations Center for U.S. Space Force.
Space Force is here, bro.
It looks like a nice van. Like, I wonder if somebody just bought that van and just did that to fuck with people, or if that's for real.
It could be. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that's pretty. If you were Space Force, though, why would you want to be so blatantly out in the open like that, just on the beach? I don't know. Maybe
they're proud of being space.
maybe they have
Force.
nothing to hide.
Yeah.
They're fucking installing the rods from God, man. So you started reading books, started getting into all the science fiction stuff,
Yeah.
and then at what point did you guys come up with the idea to start a podcast?
Well, after years of us sort of we had long, we're brothers, so we would have these long conversations. I'd go down to his house and hang out, or we're just hanging out with friends and drinking some beers, and we would just have these long, involved conversations. And we started to develop a kind of sort of an alternate or possible alternate ways of looking at this stuff, and then we would just have these amazing conversations about it. And I was like, and then I started getting into podcasts as well. I was listening to them, and I started telling Kyle, I'm like, dude, we could do this. Like these guys, there's all these different podcasts that are discussing this kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
think we have something to add to the conversation, and I want to be part of this conversation. I want to talk to these people as well.
Yeah.
And then the other great thing about having a podcast is you can kind of be just a random person, but you can invite scientists and doctors and experts and, and thinkers
Yeah.
onto your show to talk to you, and they'll come
Right.
and do it, right? Whereas if you're just like, well, I don't have any, can I just call you scientist and talk to you about some science stuff? And they're like, I'm busy. But if you have a show, they'll come and talk to you, maybe, right? So we talked about podcasting for, I don't know, a couple of months, maybe 6 months. And then finally Kyle was like, look, he already had all the equipment.
I already had a studio.
Yeah, because
Right.
he's, musician, right? So he's like, well, I got a studio, I got the mics, I got all the software we need. He said, you set up the internet side of it, whatever it is you need to do to get a podcast going. And then once you tell me like everything's ready to go and we can publish the first show, then we'll record one. Right. So I did that. I made an RSS feed. And then I was like, okay, well, I have an RSS feed. He's like, okay, let's record one tonight. And we recorded episode 1,
It's a very mysterious episode.
which no longer exists.
Why? What happened to it?
It vanished.
It is a hidden history of our podcast.
It was like I brought a bottle of wine, and by the end of the show, it was like, that was great. Then I look at the bottle of wine, I'm like, I almost drank that entire bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Then I listened to the show, and I was like, no.
Yeah. Because he's hammered.
I got hammered. It was a big bottle too. It's like
Yeah.
one of those.
Oh, so it was you guys who chose to take it down.
Yeah, I was
not-
like, dude,
not-
we
It
are
was
not-
him. I was like, that was awesome. He's like, bro, no, we're not publishing that. Yeah.
So,
And,
so our show starts at episode 2.
it starts with episode 2. Yeah.
That's funny. Man.
Yeah. So it just and that kind of stuff. We do that kind of stuff with our show all the time. We have our show specifically is a conversation between us two, between the brothers. We do get guests on, but that's not nearly as often as it's just us talking or we're reviewing somebody's book or whatever. It's our conversation, and then we bring our listeners in on it. We read their emails, we get them involved, and so we have a lot of inside jokes. And one of the inside jokes is, episode 2 is the very first episode. Yeah.
But you guys also do or have done like a weekly podcast with Randall Carlson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, we started that like 4 years ago. Yeah.
How did that come about?
So we had been aware of Randall for a while, and we mentioned him on our show multiple times, and then I found out that he was going to be at an event in Colorado
With the Grimerica boys.
Yeah, with Grimerica,
Yeah.
with our
Oh,
friends
okay.
from Grimerica.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they were hosting it, and I was like, and I had listened to Grimerica for years, so I was like, hey, I told Kyle, I was like, dude, we should go to this.
Mm-hmm.
We can meet the Grimerica guys, we can meet Randall. And so we signed up for it. They were going to be there for 10 days. We were going to be there for 3. It's like they were pulling 3 groups of people through. So we were signed up for the first set, and we went and met Randall. And we sort of became staff. They asked us to stick around. So we stayed the entire 10 days, helped drive the vans, sort of helped manage the event. And by the end of it, we were telling Randall, like, dude, like, we'll help you start a podcast. Let's get it going. Like, you have all this research material. Let's do it in podcast format and start publishing it, And so
And that's how he started Cosmographia?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, once again, I helped them build the RSS feed. We went back and forth on graphics, website. They have I built them a simple website. They have a much more advanced one now. But
Mhm.
yeah, at the time it was just like, let's just start doing it, like, let's just get it out there. You will get better as we go.
Right.
Right. And so we started it, and it was a weekly show. We started with, I guess we started talking about, what's that guy's name? The Orgone Energy.
Oh,
That was the
can't
first
remember.
episode. We kind of did a sort of cover all this different stuff, and then we went into Atlantis, and then we started doing Younger Dryas, right? And then we went into, I guess, climate change. Now we're doing, what are we talking about now? We went into the
We
sun,
did the sun a little bit.
and now we're doing like Mounds of America.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
Wow.
yeah,
So you guys just pick different topics to talk about like every month or something? Or
Randall runs the
because he does
yeah,
like I noticed he does multiple episodes on like the same topic.
many episodes. Yeah, Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, he decides like the show content. We're on the production side.
Oh, okay.
But it's almost like a classroom where we're students.
Yeah.
So he's presenting all this information. We can ask questions, make stupid jokes.
yeah.
Mhm.
We're
Occasionally.
good at making dumb jokes.
But yeah, I think he seems to really thrive in that sort of like classroom setting.
Oh yeah.
And-
Yeah, like I was telling you guys last night, I could listen to him read the phone book.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
so interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
And
But-
then how did you guys eventually get in touch with Ben again, Ben Kirkwick?
That was simple. I when he started publishing videos, I think he had only published 2 or maybe 3, and then I went and watched them, and then I was like, these are amazing. I just sent him a message on Twitter. I was like, bro, your videos are sweet. Come on our show. And he's like, okay,
What was his first video about? Was it about the ancient or the high technology stuff? Was it about like one of his trips to Egypt or what?
I think weren't they the earlier ones were about the Peru stuff? I don't know what the first one.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
man.
Oh, South
Sorry,
American
Ben.
stuff?
I don't remember. The first thing I remember watching specifically was the.
Pull up his channel. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. He did make some stuff on Peru, and he was talking about the drill cores. I
The
think.
core, yeah, the tube drills.
Tube drills. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe he also deleted his first episode.
No way.
Oh wow.
I know he made Serapeum videos in the very beginning as well.
Oh yeah.
So, but so I just messaged him on Twitter, and he just agreed to come on the show, and then we've been doing stuff together ever since. Like he's been on our show multiple times. We've been on his. We've gone on tours with him. We go to Egypt. We're going to Egypt with him in a couple weeks. Actually, we're going to be gone for 6 weeks.
You guys were there just in May of last year?
Last year we were there in November.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were there literally 2 months ago.
No. I'm sorry. The year before.
In 2020.
Yeah. My bad. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm still in last year, so it was
Yeah.
last year from last year. Yeah.
right,
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
We went to.
We were in Turkey in April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where you guys were in
Yeah.
Turkey. That's your recent video all about Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah. Yeah, we were actually in the process of working on an Egypt video on the Serapeum, and then we went to Turkey, and we're like, okay, this is all fresh in our heads. Let's make one on Göbekli Tepe right now. So Serapeum got put on hold.
That video was incredible.
Thank you.
That you guys
Wow,
did on
thanks.
Göbekli Tepe.
Thank you.
I loved that. Can you explain for people who don't know, like the origins of Göbekli Tepe? And, obviously there's the theory that it was deliberately buried,
Yeah.
but you guys come up with you guys found out, you guys
science is changing.
dug very deep.
Yes.
And you found out it's nuanced. It wasn't necessarily just buried all at
Right.
once. It was like over 1,000 years or more, right?
Yeah. And it's so the thing about the deliberate burying is it's very mysterious sounding, and that so when you're looking at mysterious stuff, or
Yeah,
looking
sorry,
for
I had a phone
mysterious
call.
things,
I
stuff like
will
that
set
can
up.
affect
Sorry, like 5-10 minutes.
the thinking on the entire site, because then you begin to think, well, why would they do this? Like, what would drive them to build something like this and then purposefully bury the whole thing and leave it? So if that didn't happen, then that's very important to know. And the thing is that
We wondered about this for so
Yeah,
long.
we
Like
talked
when you
about it.
hear that they intentionally buried this massive site, you're just like, what? Why could that be? And so we're going down these roads of like, what was it a time capsule? Were they trying to preserve a message for the future?
Yeah.
This became like a common idea, people, because this is what you ask yourself when
it's
this
like
is a
buried
monumental
treasure.
task.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why were they doing it? Were they hiding it? Were they trying to preserve it for the future? All these narratives pop up because of that, and I mean, this goes back to like my earliest interest in the ancient world was looking for arrowheads here, and you start to learn what campsites look like, what human occupation sites look like, in the Neolithic times or whatever, when they were just working with rough stone tools. And you can see what their debitage looks like. And that's when we first walked up to the site of Göbekli Tepe. It was almost instant. I was just like, this is Midden.
Yeah, you can see it. In
What
the
is
picture
what
there.
is Midden?
Midden is basically human occupation layers. They're layers of sediment that are all of the bits and pieces of debris and debitage from normal human activity. Now,
Okay.
obviously, there
This
are
is-
walls and structures in there.
This is a funny question because I figured we would talk about this, and it's interesting because Kyle learned about Midden, and then Kyle and I would go on arrowhead hunting trips, and we'd be walking, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is Midden," and I'd look down, I'm like, "What are you looking at? Like,
It's just dirt.
what is the difference?" Right? And eventually you learn to see it, and it's a lot of times it's a bunch of very similar sized rocks, like that are kind of squarish, that and you just sort of recognize it. You're like, this is somebody made this pile of stones, and it's just very old. They weren't carving the rocks or anything like that. It's just that when you bring a bunch of stones in and you make fires with them, they sort of break in regular patterns, and you end up with kind of a gravel, like a cobble-sized gravel.
Okay.
They just look very regular. It doesn't look natural where everything can be just randomly different sizes.
Right.
They're all sort of very similar, like fist-sized rocks, and you recognize, oh, there's a pile of these, covered in grass, very old, and then you start digging in it, and I mean, you don't have to dig very much, and you find specific markers, like there will be a certain kind of shell. At least in the States, you find this. There will be a certain kind of snail shell, all in the middle.
Yeah, it just depends on the types of materials that they were around.
Yeah.
At the time.
Okay.
Like the dirt, for example, looks a little more sooty. It's got ash in it. It's got a lot of charcoal. But there's all this stuff that people collected. There are, tiny little broken shards of flint just everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Well, that was the material they were working with. So if you were in a place where they were working with quartz, then you would be finding chunks and little tiny bits of quartz everywhere. If that's the stone they were working with,
Or obsidian.
Or obsidian.
Yeah.
So there's another example of we were at a place that we had basically confirmed was an occupation site. It was just like, okay, yes, people were living here. We were finding flint. We were finding all this stuff. We're walking away after about an hour of looking around, and somebody finds a little piece of obsidian. I'm like, turn around. We're going back. There's an obsidian arrowhead up here.
Yeah.
There's no reason for this piece of obsidian flake to be on this hill. It doesn't belong here. It's not from here.
There's no volcanoes anywhere nearby.
Humans brought it here.
Yeah.
And they made something out of it.
It's volcanic. Yeah.
So it's little tiny things like that. And sure enough, we found a work piece of obsidian there.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You found an obsidian arrowhead?
It's not complete. It's a little tiny bird point, like a dart.
And where was this?
I'm not going to tell you about that. It was in Arizona. Yeah.
Okay.
It was near.
Secret spot in Arizona.
Where was that?
We were.
It was near Sedona.
Yeah, Sedona. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So
outside of Sedona.
when you the first time you pulled up to, so which part of is this Göbekli
This is
Tepe the proper where now there's
Yes.
a big dome over the top?
Yeah, this is before the.
Okay.
That chamber right there. That's enclosure C.
Yeah, the one in front there. Yeah.
So
D is the one to the right.
to the right, yeah. So you can see obviously there are rock walls, and a lot of the stones that you're seeing that are just kind of bigger ones are probably broken down rock walls. But when you look closer at that material, you can tell that it's midden. It's like full of little tiny flint flakes from a people who were working flint every day of their lives making tools. There are pieces of grinding stones, which were they were made of basalt.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a basalt outcrop within like a kilometer of this site. So they were going down to this basalt outcrop, which is basalt is a volcanic stone as well, and it's a good grinding stone. So they were making grinding stones for grinding whatever, grain, ochre. They ground all kinds of stuff. They ground a massive amount of stuff based on the number of grinding stones found in this place. In fact, the archaeologists were blown away. They were like, why? Like, they even did this pretty cool experiment where they got people to grind on one of these. They made their own grinding stones, just like the ones at Göbekli Tepe, and they would grind for 8 hours in a day to see how much material that they came up with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was enough to feed like 5 people.
Really?
One guy. And so
One guy for 8 hours.
Yeah, so based on the amount of
One
grinding
college kid.
stones,
One college kid who's never done it before, grinding for 8
Yo,
hours.
Toad, what up, brother?
so they were just blown away. They're like, there are way too many.
Yeah, buddy, let me know
grinding
what's
stones
what
here to
what
support
info.
Whatever population may have been nearby. So what the hell were they doing?
Oh
They were
wow, no
manufacturing
way.
A lot of stuff. Whoever these people were that had
Wow.
grinding stuff. Now I'm not necessarily saying that's connected
That's
to
crazy.
who built this place, but
That's
there
crazy
are
stuff.
broken grinding stones all over it, and broken arrowheads, broken flint shards. So people were living and working there all the way up to fairly modern
When the
times, at least medieval times.
jazzman
And I mean, it's being
testifies.
farmed right now, so technically, they're still there. People never left.
Yeah, see the trees on the up in the upper top there. That's an
Oh no,
Those are
that's
all
not Quincy
trees.
Jones. That's
So the radiocarbon dating
Fats.
here says it's at least
Something
the
fats.
farthest back it goes. Is how old again?
It's like, oh man.
wow,
Look at the
insane.
landscape there. The view there is just unbelievable.
I'm just going to say roughly 12,000 years old.
Yeah.
Roughly 12,000.
Yeah. Now, they had a lot of difficulty in the dating. They already had, for I don't know how many decades, an established,
Oh, wow. What a great view.
a well-established dating of artifacts by style. Okay.
Yeah. It's
So in the whole Anatolian area, they have been digging in midden piles, human occupation layers, looking at styles of flint, points, arrowheads, tools, and had all this, and then had very good carbon dates from those layers in multiple different sites, corroborating the evidence of each one, so that they had a well-established time period for the types of arrowheads you would find. So if you pick up this type of arrowhead, they could instantly say, well, that's 8,000 years old, because of the style.
Okay.
At the very bottom layers of Göbekli Tepe, they were finding the arrowheads of a people that were 12,000 years old.
And how do they know those people were 12,000 years old?
because of the dates from other sites.
Because they had dug so many other sites all around Anatolia that had those arrowheads in layers that had carbon datable materials
wow.
that showed that date.
Okay.
So like,
What's up, guys? I'm super psyched to introduce to you another product that I've been using for years now that was also recommended to me by the world-renowned nutritional scientist, Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, and it is called Keto.
I'm pretty shocked that he supports Trump. That's pretty insane.
Dial in your morning beverage to bring you razor-sharp focus on demand. I start out every day with Keto Brains in my cup of coffee to combat the midday slump, and I use it for pre-workout. Keto Brains Nootropic Creamer has efficacious doses of focus-inducing alpha-GPC, lion's mane, alpha wave promoting L-theanine, and ketone-stimulating C8-MCT powder. And all of those
Crazy.
high-functioning nootropics are packed into a delicious,
I don't know, man.
creamy
I don't.
coconut powder.
I don't think he's gonna win.
It's a keto nootropic powerhouse.
I think Harris is gonna win.
To give you the flow and jitter-free energy with absolutely zero crash. There's no dosage tricks involved. It's just one scoop is a full serving. You put it in your coffee, your tea, put it in your water, whatever you want, and you get 30 full doses per package. There's no pills, and there's absolutely no waiting for it to work. It kicks in like that. You can keep your brain razor sharp, primed, and ready for action with Keto Brains Nootropic Creamer. Whether you're an entrepreneur juggling multiple projects, a student studying for exams, or you're an athlete that's trying to
I was
optimize
thinking
your
about it,
training,
man.
Keto
But
Brains will not
well, what are
let you
the
down.
odds? What are the
Alright, I'm gonna
odds?
list all the ingredients contained in Keto Brains and what they do. It increases ketone production via AGC8-MCT powder. It increases acetylcholine and HGH production via 300 milligrams of alpha GPC. It increases GABA and alpha wave production via 250 milligrams of L-theanine. And it increases BDNF and NGF via 500 milligrams of lion's mane mushrooms. And these are all carefully sourced and third-party tested ingredients.
What are the odds?
This
Like
stuff quite
the money
literally
line
increases
of
acute
Kamala
brain
winning.
function, protects your brain and
The
mitochondria
money
long
line.
term, and last but not least, it makes your coffee delicious. If you're interested in Keto Brains and you want to get a big discount, just go to the link in the description below, ketobrains.com, and use the promo code DANNY20 when you check out. Again, that's ketobrains.com. Hit the link below and use the promo code DANNY20 at checkout. Back to the show.
many times over at many different sites, when they found those arrowheads and they carbon dated something from the same layer, they would get the same date. So it's pretty good corroborating evidence that those arrowheads
No
are
way,
consistent
Matthew
with the
Perry.
date
Matthew
of
Perry
the
was
first one.
not pro MAGA.
So when they get to the bottom, the archaeologists looking at the bottom layers of Göbekli Tepe are like, this is 12,000 years old. The
Was
burial
he
layer, not
friggin'
the stonework.
posted that
but
he
the layers
he
at
got
very
the
bottom,
COVID
built up dirt,
vaccine?
right, that are burying the site.
He posted
in
that he
some
got the
cases,
booster and everything.
Stonework is older, or
It has to be at least
as old.
that
yeah,
old.
yeah. It
could
can't be it can't really be younger unless there's something another drastic, like they dug through all that stuff and
And the idea is that the people that were making and using these arrowheads were just like very primitive hunter-gatherers that would not be
Up
capable.
until this point, that's who they were. You see what I'm saying? Up until the point of the discovery of Göbekli Tepe,
that's what they were
those hunter-gatherers were considered
Seinfeld.
primitive hunter-gatherers
Right.
who never really built anything
Right.
astonishing.
yeah.
And they didn't
Definitely
even
not
have
monumental.
They didn't have pottery. The name of this culture is called the PPNA, Pre-Pottery Neolithic A, because there's a PP and B.
Pre-pottery
Right.
Neolithic A.
Yeah.
So they didn't have pottery, yet they were making gigantic standing stone circles by flattening bedrock. I mean, they took a slope of bedrock and flattened it.
Yeah, see
Made it level.
If you look at in enclosure C there, you see the little pedestal that the central stone is on.
Yes.
Yeah, see how it's on a pedestal and then
Yeah.
around it is flat? That is smooth, flattened limestone bedrock. It isn't.
Oh wow.
The pedestal itself
Yeah.
is still the bedrock. It's
So
not like
they basically cut out all the negative stone bedrock around that
Yes.
pedestal.
Yeah. And then they cut a slot
No.
in the pedestal and then slotted that
I
standing
can't believe I
stone
missed
into it.
him, man.
What?
Yeah. So it's not a simple construction, and the floors of the enclosures are smooth and beautiful, and even I don't know if this I can't remember this one, but in some cases the sides of the pedestal are decorated in relief carvings. So you there's like
High
a row.
relief?
It's not high. It's like mid relief, but it's
But they are sticking out.
Yeah,
it's
they
not
stick
like they're,
out.
It's not like they're cutting the thing into the stone. They're cutting the stone away and leaving the carving
Right.
there is a high relief when it's almost it's a sculpture of a cat.
behind that pillar.
Yeah, it's directly behind it there.
You can't see it in this photo.
Yeah, but it's amazing work.
How much deeper do you think it goes? How
Well,
much?
that's the bedrock, so
That's the
seems
bedrock
like the bottom.
there.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
And-
the bottom.
yeah.
In some places, there's a lot of tunnels in the bedrock. Not at Göbekli Tepe, but in this area of Turkey.
Plus 120.
The bedrock.
Notice
What?
this in the picture here. This is another thing to point out. They had these portal stones.
So terrible
where you
odds.
cut this- so you imagine you cut a big square slab and then you completely cut the middle of it out to make a portal stone. That one's broken.
That one in the middle.
It is way better than it
We
was
didn't get to
before,
go to
though.
Museums, but I've seen some photographs of portal stones like this that have high relief carvings of like.
In terms
cats
of
standing on the edge of that portal,
the odds are
looking over
worse.
As though they might be drinking out of a pool.
I'm saying it's more even.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Works. You know.
Yeah, so when we went, the earthquake and flood had just happened in Turkey, so we couldn't.
Oh yeah.
So all the museums.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, so the museums were closed, and they had moved, 40,000 crates of artifacts out of the museum.
Dude, a ton of people died in that
Yes,
in that earthquake.
a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah, see the high relief cat there?
Oh my God, that's
Pretty
nuts.
insane how Trump is still the favorite, though.
Yeah. So I think we're most interested in the building techniques. There's like that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's
So
amazing.
think about this: like to make this pillar, the person at the quarry had to leave a sizable chunk of stone sticking out of the side of that pillar.
So the artist had material to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's this is thoughtful. This is planning. The guy at the quarry may not be the guy who carved this cat or whatever this thing is. I doubt that it's the same person. So you have to have engineering and planning. And there's actually some new data coming out by some scientists that looking at the entire layout of the stone circles that suggests the entire site was planned. The original narrative was that, the original idea was that one circle was built and used for a while, and then they sort of they put all this stuff into sort of a religious context. Like, well, it has to be religion. Why else would you build a
Yeah,
stone
it's
circle?
ritual, it's religion,
No atheist ever builds stone circles.
apparently. No atheist ever builds beautiful temple buildings or stone circles or
Which
monuments.
could be true. I don't know.
Maybe they don't.
But it's like they do all these rituals, and then it's like, okay, the rituals are done. The gods are appeased, bury that circle, dig another one, build another circle. This was the early on ideas, but now it looks like the entire site was planned.
And it's interesting because when you start reading
Wow.
the papers,
Pardon me.
with the artifacts and the carvings, they have
God damn.
the totems
Oh
are
wow,
strange.
that is sick.
Yeah. With the
God
artifacts and
damn.
the carvings, it looks like each enclosure may have had a specific animal type associated.
Pardon me.
So you
I
have
won't do
like
that
the
again.
circle, the enclosure of the cat, the enclosure of the boar, the enclosure of the bird, the
serpent.
enclosure of the serpent, the enclosure of the fox, right? And so it's like you start to think of like, is this a kind of
Magic school.
yeah? It's
What
like
is your guys' wildest theory on what the fuck it was?
I think it might actually be.
I think the Gryffindors are going to beat the
it's the
Slytherins.
Gryffindors. Which is too bad because clearly we're part of Slytherin, right?
Oh God.
Brothers of the Serpent. But yeah, it's. I mean, I really like the idea that the standing stones themselves, at least the central pillars and the flattened platforms, may be very, very old. far older than even the artifacts and found in there. Because that's the thing. When you dig into the archaeological papers on this, they do say, specifically, they say the dates that we get from the lithics, which would be the arrowheads, the PPNA stuff, from the pottery, and also from dating organic material in the mortar of the rough stone walls at the very bottom, give us these early dates of 12,000 before present. Cannot date the megalithic architecture. It just doesn't give you the dates for that stuff because it could have been there before that.
The big T pillars.
Yes.
Yeah, and the shaping of the bedrock.
Right. So is it possible that that somebody built this stuff a long time ago and then they just disappeared or went somewhere else or whatever, and then later peoples found it and started rebuilding it, and then some of the outer smaller pillars are their attempts to recreate. So they're, in other words, they're learning some of these techniques, and then they live here. They build the rough stone walls, then maybe they cover them over, who knows,
So we kind of came up with this idea that I love this idea, the idea of ancient archaeologists.
There is evidence that people
Think
later...
about what archaeologists do. I mean, the people that have come here and dug out this site, they have excavated the site. They've stood up pillars. They've tried to rebuild some rock walls. So when I look at this site from a construction standpoint, these rock walls between the pillars, those don't look like they belong. The building style doesn't match.
Right.
The rock walls are not shaped stones. They're just sort of whatever size and shape that they are. They use mortar. They don't have carving on them. They used plaster, supposedly. And in a lot of cases, the rock walls cover up the carvings on the pillars. So it looks to me like someone came in and tried to restore an already ancient and dilapidated site. And so they would be doing what modern archaeologists do. They come in, they find this just pile of rubble, and then they start lining up the blocks and numbering them, reorganizing them, try to rebuild the entire temple or whatever it is. And why do we do this in the first place? Because we're interested in our past. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if some people 12,000 years ago found this site and were like, we've got to see what this was all about.
12,000 years ago, that was right in the middle of the Younger Dryas, right?
Right at the
Right
end.
after the end of it, just after.
12,000 was the very end of it.
Yeah.
And it lasted for
Was it
1,000 years, right?
Like
11,600 or something like
Yeah,
that.
11,006 would be the end of the Younger Dryas, something like that. And
But
then,
yeah, you're right.
so yeah, then you're looking at people, this would be just after, right? The end of it, I'm pretty sure. 10,000 something BC.
So this was built out.
Yeah. Well, the dates for the lithics in the bottoms of the walls. Like we don't know when that's what I'm trying to say. Like he may be much older than that.
So these ancient archaeologists could have been after the Younger Dryas,
Right.
trying to figure out what this was and trying to preserve it and
Could be.
look
Yeah.
into our past.
There is evidence that later peoples came and dug down into the midden, specifically into the, if you look at enclosure C again, that one. See how the top of that pillar is broken?
Yeah.
And the pillar down on the lower right, the big one.
What
down there is
Skyward
also
Sword?
busted. There's two huge pillars there and they're broken. You can see all the shattered
Pokemon?
pieces
Is that a
lying around
Pokemon
the
game?
bottom of the enclosure there. Somebody specifically around, was it 6,000 BC?
I think something like that.
6,000 BC. So, 4 to 6,000 years after the site was no longer in use, somebody came along and specifically dug a hole down to the tops of those pillars.
We Zelda, interesting.
And then reburied the site.
At least that's what.
I hear that's a good
indicates.
Zelda.
We don't know if they really smashed them, but
Right.
it could be that someone smashed them.
Yeah. What was the term they used? for that?
Iconoclasm.
Iconoclastic. Yeah. So.
It's
I wonder, think about the earthquake that just happened. I wonder how many of those earthquakes has this had to survive?
Right. That would be one reason to bury it on purpose if you didn't want it to, if you're like, I'm not going to be here to take care of it anymore, but if you bury it so the earthquakes won't destroy it.
Yeah, to protect it, huh?
Yeah.
But really, the burial looks more like collapses of the midden in something maybe like the heavy rainfall that they got.
Yeah.
Because you can see at the site, you can see that they have used sandbags and all this stuff to shore up the walls around the excavation site. the modern excavation of this
Oh,
site.
sorry, man.
They're trying to prevent all of this midden and
Sorry
soil
to hear that,
and
brother.
rocks and rubble from falling back into these enclosures. So if these enclosures were already, like at the time, maybe covered in midden,
No.
and people dug them out, then the midden would collapse back into it and, of course, be jumbled up. That's the other problem with the dating of the site, is that the midden from within these enclosures is in some cases inverted. The older stuff is at the top, the younger stuff is at the bottom.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
it,
that makes
and this
sense.
is why they thought it was buried. It's like they're just throwing material in.
Yeah.
But it
that
could
makes
also be from natural collapses of material that have fallen back into the
Yeah, they described the material that was in there as in a series of lenses, which is, that's what the soil falls in and makes this sort of lens shape in the hole, and then another set falls in from this side and makes another one, and then so when they dig through it, they can see it doesn't have a stratigraphy really like naturally laid sediment, but you can see that it's several different collapses.
Oh wow, no way, that's
So
crazy.
has this all been accepted in like the mainstream now? Like now
That's
that
crazy,
this has been
brother.
discovered and tested and looked at and analyzed for so long, is this now? Have they officially rewritten?
Wow,
the
buddy,
timeline?
exciting, man.
The
It's
Or
exciting,
is
my
it
dude.
Still,
the human timeline
is
from
it still just YouTube speculation?
no, like when we were doing all the the reading and the research for making the Göbekli Tepe video specifically, we were reading the scientific papers written by the people who had been working on the site, right? So all this stuff we're telling you is stuff that came from them, not so much. They probably wouldn't specifically say that the stone pillars could be far older, but they have specifically said that they cannot date them.
Yeah.
And all that they have been able to determine is the latest possible date for those things. They must have been built at that time or before 10,000 BC-ish. So
the pillars.
yes, yeah, because the material in the bottom is basically that.
Yeah, the other thing that it did really to the human timeline, what I feel like it should have done
Ah,
was
come
make people
on.
accept that humans were doing megalithic stonework, or that civilization may have started quite a bit earlier than what was previously believed. But instead what they did was they modified what they believed that hunter-gatherers do in
Right,
their spare
exactly.
time,
Yeah,
which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. It's like, well, we don't want to cede the point that everything that we've said about humans' advancement through time is incorrect. We'll just modify this as a definition of this term.
see the anthropomorphizing of the pillars. This is the other weird thing, and this is, you'll love this. That, we didn't come up with this connection, but many people have pointed it out. See how each pillar there, the two central ones, they've got that the V shape going down. That's
Sideways V.
It's a sideways V.
Yeah.
It's an arm. So you can view the pillars as basically standing human figures. They have arms that go down the side and then wrap around in the front. See if you can find a picture that shows the front of them with the fingers.
Yeah, they're standing there kind of holding their belts.
Yeah, they have belts on, so you can view the T shape at the top as sort of the head.
And there's arms carved into them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're standing with their fingers wrapped around the front of their belts.
Yeah, it's a very strange and kind of eerie representation.
They're wearing
Yeah,
fox pelts.
there you go. See his fingers?
Right there.
National
yeah.
Geographic.
Down
Oh,
right
No,
there. Yes, this one.
what?
This one. Yeah. See if you can open that up. Right, so he's... there we go, yeah. I wish I'd have
So
thought
this is
to
like
bring
his
this.
hands down to his side.
Yeah, so see the belt going around down there, and it's got a fox pelt hanging from the belt on the front, and those are his fingers coming around the front there, just above the belt.
He's kind of holding his
They're
belly.
real thin. They're incredibly thin.
And
right?
you can see the two lines going up the center. He's wearing like a jacket type
Yeah,
of, like
he's got a robe or a jacket on. It's got a belt with complicated buckles or something around it, and a fox pelt or something hanging from the front. Right. This is a very interesting carving. So they are supposed to be anthropomorphic figures, and so
Aliens.
Right. It's yeah, or some kind of strange hominid god.
Long
Right.
heads.
Now you want to start thinking about long heads or Anunnaki or something.
Right.
There's two of them in each enclosure, and they're like twins or brothers or two different guys standing there in the middle, taller than everything else, sort of surrounded by a council or knowledge in the shape of other T-pillars, facing them. But the other weird thing, and this is wild. See if you can. When you get back there, pull up some pictures of the Moai statues on Easter Island.
Yo, Easter Island just got like burned down, right?
Did it?
And a bunch of those heads got like torched.
Oh,
Yeah.
How do you burn stone heads?
It's not. They're not stone. They're what are they, Steve?
They're volcanic ash.
Yeah, they're made of ash.
They look like concrete, but they're
Like tough? Is it volcanic tough?
I don't know, but it's
You could find out.
You can burn it.
I thought they were basalt.
So you can see some of these. Yeah, just pull up one of the pictures of where there's a bunch of them in a row. Yeah, it may be tough to see on this. Oh yeah.
The ad zoom bigger than the regular picture.
Can you find out exactly what it's called these stones are made out of, Steve?
Well, if it's ash, it might be volcanic tough, which is
Yeah.
actually a pretty
Tough.
soft. I don't know why they call it tough. It's
Yeah,
soft.
it's soft. It's not tough at all. Right. Okay. Yeah. So there you go. It's volcanic tough, solidified ash.
right.
Okay. So yeah, that stuff. That's what the tunnel systems. Why can't I think of Darren Q.
Yeah, Darren Q.
In Turkey, they're dug out of volcanic tuff.
Oh,
'Cause,
really?
yeah, it's actually not.
That underground labyrinth?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult to dig.
Whoa, look at the shit on his back.
Yeah,
have
this is
never
one that
seen
was
that.
buried for a long time, and he has all kinds of stuff on his back. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. There are a lot of stylistic similarities to some of the things that are carved onto these Moai statues, is what we see at Göbekli Tepe.
How have you never showed me this?
This is the first
Keeping this from me.
I gotta hold back those snake facts, bro. Sometimes.
Did you guys go to Darren Kuyu?
Not yet. No.
Can you go in there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think the Darren Kuyu was for? What was that built for?
I mean, the first thing it makes me think of is like a.
Oh, go to that one with the people standing next to
Yeah.
it.
There you go.
Yeah.
See if you can get in on the.
It may be one of the many arcs.
Oh, look at that.
There,
There's
those
the
fingers, dude. Look at that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the
Zoom that
fingers.
picture in.
Yeah.
Do the
Oh
There we go.
my gosh, dude.
Yeah. See the fingers?
That is wild.
It's so weird how it's similar. There are other statues in other places that have this same pose. Now, you could argue like this isn't that big of a deal, the pose or whatever, but I do find the long, thin, strange-looking fingers to be sort of. It's just weird that they would come up with that two different things at so different places and different times. You know, that's the question: how old are these things? You know, are some of them very old?
They have no way to carve and date the tough stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And look how deep it is in the sediment.
So deep.
Yeah.
Now you could
So
carbon date that sediment
intentionally-
possibly.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you get to the bottom and you find a piece of organic material, like a burnt, like say maybe somebody had a campfire
Yeah.
nearby,
Right.
uphill slightly, and so then when this sort of inundation of soil came in, maybe it pushed some of that charcoal around in the same layers at the base of this statue. You could date those. And then you could maybe make a correlation that the statue was stood up in this place at least by this date.
Right.
But that date could be very young because when the statue was not buried, the statue was already very old. You see what I mean? The date of the charcoal of somebody's fire pit near the statue doesn't mean the statue dates to the age of the fire pit. The statue could be much older.
Right.
Just can't
That's
be younger.
just the minimum date.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing with this, I remember when I was first, like soon after the accident, and I'm looking at Easter Island, years and years ago, you can find, or at least at the time I did, I found old drawings where,
What is that? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's
Oh,
okay.
that's images. Sorry, I'm gonna bring that up.
No,
It's
no.
like an airplane.
Yeah, is it somebody's watermark? I don't know what that is. Yeah, there are sketches where some of the first people to visit the island sat and sketched the heads and the sort of the landscape, and they're very well done. And you can find a photograph of that same spot. So 400 years later, 400 or 500 years later, of the same spot, and it hasn't changed at all. The heads are all the same. You know how some of them are tilted this way, some
Right.
tilted that way.
Right.
They're buried to the same spot, like up to the chin or just up to the shoulders, as this sketch from 400 years ago. And then you look at the timeline where they're supposed to have all been built between, I can't remember exactly, was it 1400 to 1500 AD, something like that. That was when they were all erected. So the people who did the sketch came there around 100 years after that, and the statues are already buried up to their necks. And then in the next 400 years, nothing changes. And so it's sort of difficult to believe. But the other interesting thing is...
So wait, 1400 AD, they were stood up again?
No, I think the idea is that that the first European explorers that showed up on the island showed up about 100 years after the statues had been put up.
According to
The standard story.
Standard story.
Yeah.
Standard story. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and don't, like I may be getting some of this a little inaccurate. I can't remember all the dates exactly, but it's basically around 100 years after those statues had been completed, or nobody was making them anymore, is when the first Europeans showed up, and then they made sketches, and then you can compare those sketches, to
Look at how similar this looks.
it's very similar
to
to
the
this,
T-pillar
yeah,
carving.
the
Is
style,
it
the
really?
birds, the vultures, it's really strange stuff.
Just keep scrolling down a little bit, Steve.
But see, this is what people do when you find volcanic tuff. You just do this. This is like a natural human thing.
oh, look, the whole video. What's carved on their backs?
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Now wow.
Somebody superimposed paint onto a.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
they actually painted it.
Did they? Yeah. Did
That's
they paint
awesome.
a real? Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
That's so weird, man.
Check out that bird thing. With
Yeah. Like a vulture. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks very ceremonious,
Is it a rabbit?
ritualistic.
Yeah. So the other
It's
thing,
like if you're that advanced, why are you wasting your time carving stones?
I also love that they have these red hats. You know? What are those things?
It's a fez.
It's a fez.
So
And
Is
you're
it a-
never gonna do it without your fez.
Do you think this was just super easy for them to do?
It does seem like it.
Creating this stuff is
Yeah.
it's like nothing to them, or do you think that they actually spent fucking months and months and years creating this stuff out of this stone?
Well, either way, you want to know what is the reason. Like, what was the drive to do it?
Right.
Like,
Right.
if it was easy, or even if it was difficult, like, why did they want to do this stuff? And a lot of times you find the standard story to be sort of, it's just not very satisfactory. Anyway, the thing I was pointing out is that
What is that?
That's the caldera, the extinct volcano.
Oh, that's the volcano on Easter Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also a form of writing called Rongo Rongo
Come on.
that comes from this place that's never been deciphered. Well, they haven't found very much of it.
Yeah.
Some wood carvings. Of
This
the
is not
writing
Peace.
style that looks-
Like
very
it's
interesting.
that was there for like
And
3
it's-
seconds.
yeah,
It's
and
not
it's
Peace.
extremely similar. Lots of very similar characters to.
Wow. Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Isn't that awesome looking?
That is incredible.
It looks almost perfect.
Yeah,
That may be a recreation.
Yeah.
I've seen it on a wood,
they're
Uh,
on wood. Yeah.
but yeah, that's awesome. It's like figures and stuff. There's somewhat stylized
Like think of semaphore. Semaphore is like a language of body. Like people at sea would use this, or it looks like semaphore. Like it's like little stylized drawings of human figures doing different positions. Which is why we came up with this idea that it was a.
There's the wood.
Yeah, there's the wood.
No, that's the same thing. It's that papyrus.
Oh,
okay. But what's interesting is how similar it looks to the Indus Valley.
Wow,
script,
it might be 23. I think it was 24 pace, but that was
which is
quite
that's
an
in
exceptional
Pakistan.
ending.
And it has
I think it's
there's
23
an
though.
undeciphered script there that looks almost exactly like this stuff from Easter Island. Again, on the wrong side of the world. So is there a connection? Now you're thinking, okay, so you got Indus Valley, you got Göbekli Tepe,
So far
and
apart.
both of these are pointing to, in stylized ways, and even with the writing, to Easter Island. There's a lot of the very same kind of figures. Some of them are different, but it's very similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the.
It was the
most,
fourth
like,
cam.
perplexing things to me is
Fourth
how,
cam, I got boosted around
like,
the
based on
table, and
how
I had to
advanced these
spend an
people
extra
were, how
second.
long
I
it
know
took them to do
exactly
this kind of
what it was.
Like, did it really take them that long, or was it just super fucking easy
Yeah.
for them to do?
There's some stuff that looks like it was easy to do. Just based on how I don't know. It's like some of the granite stonework that you see in Egypt,
Man,
where
Peru.
they're like removing material after they've put the stone in place because they're essentially facing off a wall to make it flat.
It was a pretty
The
slow
amount of material
third
they're
cam
removing
too.
from some of these stones is just
I think it was like
insane.
second bullet.
I can't
third cam.
imagine.
I could pull some up here if this.
Yeah, like I mean, just like
That's
the-
what I'm sorry. I interrupted.
No. I was just gonna say, like, the Serapeum boxes by themselves are just so fascinating because, as you know, Chris talks about in his book. Chris Dunn talks about in his books. He asked one of the biggest granite manufacturers in the country what it would take for them to reproduce that box, and he said we couldn't reproduce that the way it is. We would have to take separate slabs and bolt them together,
Yes.
and it would cost upwards of $500,000.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look at some of those too, the boxes in the Serapeum. But this is Menkaure, the third pyramid on Giza, the small one that
What?
people
How did
mostly
I
don't pay
miss that
attention to.
camera? Like what?
But it has this very interesting stonework at the base of it. Like Menkaure, just like the other pyramids there, are built out of the core material.
Where did the bullet
all
go?
this stuff
What?
up
Okay,
here
now
is
honestly,
limestone, right? This is all limestone blocks. But down here,
So
these-
this is the smallest one in the
where did the
line.
bullet
Yes.
go?
Yeah, look at
What?
those granite blocks. Like, some people are here for
What?
scale. These are huge. And these would be the
Am I
casing stones
tripping?
or the facing stones, right? So the
Wow.
other two pyramids
I
were
gotta
also
go. I'm gonna
cased
Right.
definitely
in
gonna
this
check this
beautiful
out
Tura
again.
limestone. It's a very hard white limestone, and they were
Where did this
flattened all the
bullet
way up.
go?
And, there's old writings about how they would.
Pardon this brief interruption, but I want to take a second to talk about our sponsor, Verso. Now, if you've heard this podcast before, chances are you already know how obsessed I
white
am with health and
vans.
longevity, which is why one of my favorite guests to have on the show is nutritional scientist and neuroscientist Dr. Dom D'Agostino, who actually introduced me to this stuff. Verso is a company that is dedicated to translating
Like the
scientific
shoes?
breakthroughs into products that hold the potential to increase longevity. The problem with aging is we accumulate these zombie cells, or old damaged cells, that linger beyond their useful life. These zombie cells infect other healthy cells, speeding up the aging process, causing things like hair loss, wrinkles,
Oh
arthritis,
no, I
cancer,
didn't see
dementia,
that.
and everything in the realm of aging. What scientists have realized is that we can manually induce autophagy, meaning the cleanup process of the old zombie cells and replacing them
It'd be
with
pretty
new
insane
ones.
if Joe
Verso
Rogan
Clean
endorsed
Being, which I take every night, is a
Trump.
powerful blend of senolytic molecules that help promote
Because,
the body's natural
again, the
cleanup
abortion
processes
thing.
like autophagy and apoptosis, promoting better cellular health, supporting lower inflammation and natural cardioprotective functions, while boosting protection against age-related diseases. The three main ingredients in Clean Being are spermidine, luteolin, and dihydroquercetin, which play key roles in the control of gene expression and are
Didn't
essential
Rogan
for cell
hold the
growth
end of the
and function.
world
Specifically,
comedy
when it
roast
comes
in
to
2016
cardiovascular and cognitive function,
when Donald
sleep
Trump?
health, vision, and
Should we
the immune
watch that?
system?
Should we put that
Head
on?
over to ver.so and use the coupon code
We should put that on,
DANNY,
honestly,
spelled
bros.
D-A-N-N-Y, to
I
save
think we're gonna watch
50%
that. We're
of
gonna
your
watch
entire
fucking
order,
when
or
Bill
just go to ver.so
Bill Burr
/
fucking
back to the show.
he was on
Like
fire that
rivers in
night.
the desert before the casing stones were gone because they were so.
And they were stripped off and looted.
Yeah, they're.
Oh shit, your stream's still open, bro. What? Where is it? Did they take it down? Are you serious right now? Wow, did Joe Rogan take it down? What a fucking coward. I can't believe they took it down. Fuck you, Joe Rogan.
this episode, we get to see a dramatic Joe Rogan at the Comedy Store.
How dare you boo me? I'm talking off the top of my head. Barely know what the fuck I'm saying.
Joe Rogan oversteps his boundary.
They took it down, man. They took it down, dude. Here it is, yo, Toad. You know what I mean? Remember that? Like, is he trying to friggin', like, Rose? Just admit it. Just say it. Just say it, man. Like, you're one of the most watched and filmed human beings. It's not like we're just gonna forget this. That 8 years ago you did a roast called End of the World when Donald Trump was elected president in 2016. And it was amazing. It was a great... Bill Burr was on fire. You had Brett Kitchener, whatever his name is. Burr was on fire, man. It's just a shame. Maybe it's on Rumble. No, I even filtered it over 20 minutes and it's gone. It's scrubbed. I can't believe it. Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
There's earthquakes and then they're gone. Yeah.
The way to look at this is like this is the roof of the structure.
Yeah.
That casing.
Right.
So you build the interior of the structure you can build it with much softer
Scrubbed,
stone.
man.
In some cases they built them with
That
mud
was like
brick.
3 hours long.
But you then case that in a very hard stone. Tura limestone is a very hard silica-rich form of limestone. So it's much harder. It erodes way slower. Granite, obviously, is even harder than that, and it takes forever to erode. But that's like you're putting a roof on the structure to protect the structure, and then when it's gone, you can see that the core masonry there is just heavily
It's getting degraded.
Now, do we know if the interior of these smaller pyramids is anything similar to the Great Pyramid?
They have passageways and chambers. We haven't been in Minkara yet. We're going to do that this year.
But do we have diagrams? Like we have diagrams of all the all the chambers, so we know what the inside.
Friggin'
The
end of the
For
world.
the most part, if I recall correctly, the
With
Great Pyramid is
Bill
the only one
Burr
that has any substantial
scrubbed,
structures in the
Honk
body of the
FM
pyramid itself. The
scrubbed.
rest of them mostly go underground.
Yeah, Hideyoshi.
So
I
the
don't know if
whole-
you're
it
still here,
seems like
bro.
the entire
Honk
Big
FM
Pyramid
is
has
gone, brother.
Yes, you're right. The Big Pyramid has structures inside of it. We
I've
can look at
scanned
that as
that
well. Yeah. But most of the time,
No
it's
more
just
Honk
see
FM.
the
It's a
entrance
sad
back
day.
here. This is the entrance right here.
Okay.
So this is just a descending passageway. It basically goes straight down into the ground, and then there's chambers way down in there. The Great Pyramid does this as well, but there's a descending passage that goes.
I think I
up as
saved
well,
like
and then you have
5%
Grand
of
Gallery
the
and,
files.
the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber.
Nothing
up
racist
inside
or
the body of the
sexist, of
pyramid.
course, but like
When you go into Khafre, the middle pyramid, it just has a descending
probably
passageway.
saved like
down
less
underneath
than
it.
5% of
there's
the
nothing
library,
else.
Not
unfortunately.
that is known.
Still, it's like
Yeah.
40
But anyway, look
MP3s
at,
or
so you're
something.
noticing these blocks, and we're talking about this because of like was it
Unlicensed
easy,
music.
Right.
This is not in substantial amounts of stone, as you can see from the people standing here. These are huge blocks. They have to be tilted, and they're also, notice how they're kind of puffy or like pillowy.
Yeah.
So they were leaving extra material on because they were going to flatten it like this. Let's see, we'll move forward.
Oh, some of them are flat and perfect.
Yeah, just right around the entrance. And also notice all these nubs.
Yeah,
See all
those
these?
are the same nubs on the ones in South America, in Central America.
Yeah, they have these all over the world. There's a lot of interesting ideas about these. Kyle and I kind of lean towards the idea that they're functional, like they were used for maneuvering, and then they were cut off during the finishing process. But here you can see the part of the flattened face.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, let me zoom back out and move here. Yeah, and then there's some like reverse nubs, insets, and then, for grabbing this block. But look at all this extra material. Like, look at this huge, and granted it's heavy. So you're talking about a lot of extra material in here. I could come back to some of it, but here's the flattened face.
So how come the rest of it's not flattened like this?
Well, that's the question. That is a great question. It's like, why didn't they finish the job? But there's this big square of flattened area right here in front of the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Which seems funny, if this is a tomb and you're trying to sort of hide the entrance and everything like that, well, this makes it relatively obvious where the door is. Right?
Yes.
And also because the other two large pyramids had casing stones all over them, and those were completely flattened
They were
out.
perfect.
Yeah, they were finished. This just looks like it was not completed. Like they were in the process. Or they
A
were
family
using it- they
coming
were
over?
using this
Wow,
surface as a
insane,
survey
buddy.
point. This is the other thing we
Congrats,
discussed.
man.
We actually have
That's nice,
some
not having to
evidence
die.
after walking all the way around this pyramid.
It's good,
looking-
man. Yeah,
so
just
you can
take a
imagine that one of
breather.
these blocks, this flattened
Chill out.
blocks,
That's always good.
because it
It's always
has
good
the top
motivation to
and
clean your
bottom,
apartment.
and then it has this bevel,
Someone,
this
family coming
angled
over,
face,
friends
and
or
there's gonna be
whoever.
a certain cut degree angle.
It's
Yeah.
cool,
Flat
brother.
surface here and a flat surface there.
Right.
That the other blocks will not have because they're all puffy and pillowy on the front. So when we were walking around the pyramid, there's just piles and piles of granite laying on the sides.
They've been
of the
quarrying
pyramid,
it.
quarried out. So we were looking for blocks with this angle, two flat surfaces
Like a
with this
prism
angle.
stone, yeah.
And we found them
Yep.
around the other two sides that are not uncovered. So I think that there was a flattened. We think that there's a pretty good case to be made that there was a flattened surface about this size on each
face.
side of the pyramid.
There is one on the other side, which we'll look at in a minute.
Yeah.
Like this is the north side, so around on the east side of the pyramid, there is another flattened face. And the other interesting thing, just to point out, is the only reason we have this pile of casing stones here is because
Yo, Toad,
as
I
people
was
were quarrying
watching
the stuff above it, the granite off here,
old
they were making
Speed
piles of
Lore.
rubble down here, and it basically just covered this.
I was actually
stuff
watching the
up.
Bunker
And it
One
became too
essay,
difficult to
Speed
dig out,
Lore,
so they
and
just
I
left it. So it still
was
survived,
reading
but
your
buried under the
comments
other
in
quarry.
chat.
Intentionally buried.
It's like,
Intentionally buried, right? So, but the other point, the thing to
So if
From
they were gonna
last
smooth the stones, they would
decade.
start from the top. Maybe.
Well,
you would
think-
want to, yeah.
You'd think
fucking
that
chat was a different
you'd wanna start
animal back
from
then.
the top stones.
Right.
But you have to build it from the bottom. So this is the thing. How do you maintain as you're going up the integrity of this flat surface as you're stacking these blocks up? In other words, as you're setting
The
each
epic.
stone in, you know it has enough material on it that when you flatten it out, there isn't going to be a hole somewhere.
Right.
So maybe you flatten out a square area at the first few courses at the base to give yourself a survey platform so that you can check as you go up using it, whatever method you got.
A really simple method to check the distance from the bottom of this to the top of it, and then extend that further out as you make new courses. Like, do we have enough stones sticking out where they actually meet each other in this crevice? Is that far enough out so that
Right
when you
here.
flatten it, it won't be a
So
void?
there's no
See
void.
this deep crevice between the stones
Yes.
here and here? You want to make sure that when you flatten it to here, there's not actually going to be like a hole in here somewhere.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do it by, just
No.
put a couple of like rods in here with string and pull, and you end up
Manica.
pulling the string all the way up, and you're just checking distance.
I did
as you
not,
go up.
dude.
They
I'm
have enough
sorry,
stone
man.
In each place.
And you can move
I'm
it.
sorry,
Yeah,
man.
you can sweep it back and forth and check the whole face. And so that was the idea. Is like, did they have 4 of these on each face, and you have one facing crew per side of the pyramid. They just did it
Completely
time to
forget
finish the
every
job.
time I end stream. I
Another
like,
interesting.
I
So
completely
it
forget.
seems like they built the Great Pyramid first, and then this was the last.
I know you've told me, I
Maybe
think, like,
the,
every
maybe
stream.
Khafre, the central pyramid, was the one built first. Ben
I'm sorry,
actually
dude.
thinks that's the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I forgot.
And it's interesting because that one, the other great thing about that one is it has a couple of rows at the very bottom of granite casing stones that have been finished, and they are.
I guess I'm the one that
they're
suffers.
just unbelievably magnificent. You know, just perfectly cut, beautiful granite casing stones. And then as you walk around that pyramid, there's a row of granite rubble all the way around the thing because people were cutting them up to take these beautiful faces that have been cut. Because the source of this granite's 500 miles away. So if you're somebody living near this area,
That's so wild.
and, yeah.
You need to fucking get a plane to go. You need to fly there when you're
yeah,
traveling.
Yeah.
That's
It's
how
not
far
wild.
it is.
It's not wild. This is just what people do.
It's the easiest way to,
Totally natural.
Like, listen, when you want to build a cool structure in the desert, you bring stone from 500 miles away and you stack it up into a triangle. It's like the simplest thing to do. Like, everybody does it. It's crazy how
It
that
really
becomes a
puts it
story.
into perspective when you're there and you realize, like you guys were telling me last night. Yeah, we had to catch a plane to the quarry.
Yeah.
That's how fucking far
Yeah.
it is.
Well, we catch a plane and then we have to ride a boat for 4 days to get to the quarry. Yeah. What do you want to do?
I just want to go back to the original point of bringing this up, the perspective to show you how much stone was removed here. So I was wanting to show this
Yeah,
one
let me-
photo because it really gives you an idea of why it looks to me why it was easy for them. Because you wonder to yourself, how much work would it take to take away that much stone to make that flat surface? Now the next photo should give you
Oh, what?
an idea of how much that is.
Look how much material that is. It's a lot.
It's wider than this guy's shoulders. I mean, in some cases it's up to like 2 feet,
Yeah.
18 inches at least. They were removing of that granite. Now they
No,
weren't.
this is granite.
This is granite. They weren't just cutting it with a saw.
It's like,
I mean, how do you get a saw in there?
Yeah,
No.
go back to this. Look, notice that there's a radius.
They're grinding it away somehow.
You see how it curves up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like there's like you can imagine like just putting a giant belt sander down on this thing.
Right.
You know, and then they're removing this much material. That's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of stone. This is granite. That's a lot. You know, think of
I mean,
trying
just
to pick
the
up
waste.
Yeah.
Like, think of the amount of waste that would create on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be piles of it, especially if you're doing an entire pyramid like this.
so is there
Insane.
Is there
Yo, Hideyoshi, Honk FM is
evidence
down,
of,
brother.
like, layers that they
I don't
have
know if you
to
heard or
lay it
saw.
in layers, or is it just
Honk
one go?
FM appears to have
But, yeah,
passed
there is
away.
no evidence for this. The problem
It's not a
is,
person, it's a website, but
because there has been occupation.
Jim
and
Cramer,
people working on this site for
Harris to
thousands
win?
and
Do I
thousands of
have
years after
Harris?
This pyramid was supposedly built. I mean, it's so hard to figure out who did what.
hey, it's your
This is the
body,
other
your
thing,
choice.
Just to put this in perspective.
Empty
this
cover
is
for
like
Manica,
fourth-
yeah, really.
This is like 4th Dynasty Old Kingdom. Like all these big pyramids are in that area, right? So they're it's like the beginning of the dynastic period of Egypt. So
Oh,
they're the
no way.
oldest part of their
Oh,
civilization.
yeah, yeah.
You know, New Kingdom would have
Right.
looked at these people and thought of them as ancients.
That is
People who
true.
built This stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, you know, so you're talking about they start out with these monuments, practically.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to point out here, this is really cool because, you know, now we've looked at all this, you see how big the blocks are, how much stone they're removing, and then you see something like this. You zoom in on that, where they've just,
Oh, my God.
you know, so you're setting these giant blocks in, and you're also like, yeah, just make that next one, you know, a 1/4 inch down from the one next to it. Because it's easy, like you were
That's
saying.
the point. Yeah, it's like this.
This makes it look easy.
At least whatever method that it seems like the method they used to do this just
Oh, like
doing
what?
stuff
Like,
like
come on,
this
man.
was easy. I can't help but think. I mean, people always want to know. You know, was this a geopolymer? Was this whatever? Was there
Right,
some
right.
way? To me, it looks like grinding. Like that, if they had something connected to that stone that they were laying down, the one that they're putting on there, that they could vibrate that stone. It would eat away both faces, all 3 faces that the stone is going up against, including its own, and basically make the mating faces perfectly match each other.
Yeah, so let me back up here, and
That's what I wanted
we can
to
talk
ask.
about that a little bit because there's evidence here, and then there's something in Peru we can look at about that as well. So let me go to this slide. this one here. So see the blocks at the top here. This is what we're looking at. These
I don't know,
would have been
man.
sitting
I
up
don't
against
eat
each other
yogurt.
when before the destruction and all the quarrying happened. So
Right.
this face of this block sat against that one. Probably this face sat up against here. I can probably zoom in a bit.
Maybe.
Now, what's interesting, it's hard to tell with this picture.
Not a big
these
yogurt
faces
guy,
aren't
though.
Flat. They have these. They have these very slight curves. Like the side of that block does something like this.
Pretty fatty.
And then the block that it matches has the matching
Come on,
slight
man.
curves. Yeah, it's hard. So let me.
You're the weird
let's
one who
switch
still
over
eats
to,
yogurt,
That's the
brother.
point. If you take two stones, they can have whatever face, and you start grinding them together. Eventually, their faces are going to match. They won't be
Yeah.
flat; they'll be curved, but the contours of that curve will match each other. That's why I'm like.
Come
to
on,
me, I'm
man.
not
It's
saying
like
that
it's
they
like still
ground
eating
the stones
cereal,
together, but
man.
that's what it would look like. Yeah.
It's not the same as
So
cereal,
these were
but
sent to
How
us.
the fuck did they do that?
I have no idea.
These were sent to us by. One
It's
of
just
the
like
people that
high-
was our show.
high-
He'd been to Peru, and he took these pictures
high fat,
specifically.
high sugar,
So you can see.
dairy,
It's tough to tell, but you're basically there's a big block here and a big block here, and you can
fruit,
see that
sugar.
the inside face of this block, the corner goes out on the top here and goes in on the bottom, and there's a matching face, a complex curve of the block next
Twist.
to
It's
it.
almost like the
It's
face has
twisted.
a twist in it.
Right?
Plain yogurt.
Here's another picture of the same area. You can see
I hear ya.
this.
Still
interior
quite a
face
lot
this
of
block
fat,
has a
though, isn't it?
twist,
Isn't
and
it, like, quite a
matches
lot
the
of fat
twist
in
of
there?
This block and the one it's sitting into.
Like,
at the
why?
bottom.
I don't know how to explain
Just a
that.
large addition of
It's the
fat.
only thing that I can think of is that they're being ground together. I don't know any other
Anyways,
way
I'm
to
not making fun of you for
make
eating
that
it.
happen
That was
unless
just
you
my rebuttal.
had a computer controlling the device that was cutting the stones and making each one exact. But if you had a computer that was cutting them exact, why would you leave the bulk of material on the front to be flattened later? Why not just cut it exact? You know what I'm saying? If you were so good at laying these stones that you weren't worried about it.
Right.
That's the other thing that's interesting about leaving all the extra material in the front is you can also look at it as a protective layer. You know that your final finished product is going to have this glassy, polished.
How many
surface
grams,
that's
though?
Completely flat. You want that protected by multiple layers of stone during the construction process, not layers, multiple inches of stone.
How many grams of
So
fat is
you
that?
drop a block against it, it hits it, right?
Yeah, and if a block was dropped near the top of the pyramid and it had tumbled down,
Right.
it's going
You
to do a
scratch
lot
it,
of damage.
dent
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
The
So-
very last thing you want to do is basically just cut down the edge of
Right,
it.
so just like painting the inside, you start at the top and you paint your way down.
Exactly.
And that's
Doesn't
the
sound
last
like that
thing you
much,
do,
though.
Right? So it's the finishing work. And a lot of times these places look like
6
it's the
grams
finishing
fat,
work that didn't get completed. And that's why you see
That
things
is,
like
that's,
nubs,
dude, that's quite
because the
high.
nubs would be gone once it's finished.
Right.
Per 3/4 cup, that's like
Yeah.
200
Now, when
milliliters.
you guys are walking around those
6
pyramids,
grams
is
of
it just
fat.
like those some of the
Wow,
pictures that
that's a
Ben
lot of
shows
fat.
those massive circular saw cuts in these things. Are those just laying there for everyone to see, like in the open?
Just like
Yes.
as like an additional
place.
thing, you know what I mean?
And
As like
you
a
can tell
sauce.
There's multiple different
As
types of
a-
sauce. And you can kind of tell the differences between them.
I don't know.
You can
I guess
see
you're
the
not
leading
eating fucking
cutting edge.
200
And if
milliliters
that-
of yogurt.
like, let's say there's a stone that's
Every
broken
day,
down
are
and
you?
It has a saw mark on one
Do you
side.
eat it every day?
The leading edge
That's a lot
is
of fat.
concave. In other words, going in. Then it's got to be some kind of circular saw or something like that, or at least a curved blade.
For me, it
If
would
the
be a
leading
lot of
edge
fat.
is convex.
I
in
eat a
other
lot
words,
of
it's coming
food,
out at you,
so I'm
then
like
it's a
right at my
rope saw or
limit.
Some kind of
I'm probably
right,
above
'cause
my
I-
limit of what I really
yeah,
should
rope saw
eat.
would never have a concave edge to it, so you can kind of tell. Plus, a rope saw.
But like
can
I couldn't
twist
afford
and
adding
make all these
yogurt to
interesting
my
curves
diet.
as it goes down, and you can see that in many cases.
Rope saw, chainsaw.
I need still need to remove
what
some
they call it,
stuff,
a
I
chain?
think.
It's like a cable
Cable
saw. or
saw,
something
yeah.
like that.
We visited a quarry, a marble quarry in.
What's the day nowadays? No worries,
and
man.
They showed us some of their quarrying techniques, like the old style where they were drilling and using and blasting,
Do multiple drill holes next to each other.
and then blast it out to get the block right. And then now they have this new thing where they drill one long hole and they run a chain through it, basically. Or a
Like even
cable.
my protein
Background.
shakes
Instead of
was
diamond.
Diamond.
Synthetic diamond.
6
They
grams
just
of
have this
fat
machine that sits at the end and spins and just runs that
for
cable
2
through and just cuts
shakes
this
a day.
beautiful face through that.
6 grams of sugar
you know,
and 6
through that
grams of
marble, and
fat,
it
and
will
I
leave these
was
interesting
like
warped,
really.
complex
twisting
surfaces. As the
Like, it
cable,
was
you
just
know, 'cause
too
the
much.
cable just kind of does what it wants to do.
So when you said 6 grams,
It's
it's like
basically flat, but it's got
exactly
this very slight, just like we see on
specifically
these
the
blocks in
amount
some
I
cases,
have
like they
cut
come in
out
with some
from
kind
my
of cable.
life
Yeah,
daily.
so it's possible that they cut
for
the
the
blocks
past, like,
in
6
the quarry
months,
with something like that.
ironically
and said
enough.
these two go together, but you can't do it on both sides,
Right.
top and bottom.
Especially in the dairy form.
So it has to have been something else.
Another possibility we've talked about, and this is, you know, some of this stuff gets way out there, but is it
I'm
like
not-
Kyle was saying?
I'm not judging though.
What is it, like a lapping? Is that what it's called when you're rubbing the?
I don't. Yeah, probably.
I think it's lapping. It's so one of the, you know, you had Chris Dunn in here, and he talked about, you know, these AAA granite surfaces that they have where they use this flat plate to check other flat stuff for manufacturing, and it's kept in a climate controlled, humidity controlled room, you know, where, because that way it never changes. If
Right.
it gets a little warmer, it'll shift its slight bit.
Right.
And you don't want that because these are
Wow,
very precise
insane.
things. You make those by basically rubbing 2 granite surfaces together and then add a third one. And as you do that, when you have 3 surfaces you're rubbing together, back
Cool,
and
bro.
forth,
That's
you
really
end up with this
interesting.
beautifully flat surface. But if it's just 2, just rubbing 2 of them together, they can become very smooth, but they may have some kind of contour, but they'll match because you've been rubbing them against each other. So is it possible that some of these stones are basically like you put them in there and you get a vibration going, and it just works its way into the other stone until you've got the surfaces all matching, and then you've set
You
it.
get it roughly square, and then when you put it in there, it matches, and you can make them all the faces match, and
Right.
mate all the way.
Nice, buddy.
Because like some of the casing stones we were looking at, they may be 3 feet tall and like, you know, 8 feet wide or something, but they also go back in towards the body of the pyramid, like 4 feet or something,
Yeah.
or more,
Right.
in some cases.
Yeah.
Or maybe they weren't perfectly fitting together originally when they built it, and after using them for whatever their purpose was, they all vibrated, and then it just like
Yes.
it all sort of melded together. But one of the things
Well,
Chris was showing me,
You can see how deep they are here. This is how, you know, this is the depth of the casing stones.
One argument I would make against that, let's say that you had 1 inch that it would vibrate down, because like if they're not perfectly mated, there's gaps and stuff like that in the first course and
Right.
the second course and third and fourth and all the way to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Then they all vibrate together and move down. The top layer is going to have moved many feet down once you take up for all the gaps that were in all the courses going all the way up.
Right.
Plus they would have to come together side to side, so it looks like they were
Yeah.
doing this
You have to do
as
it
they built it.
individually.
as they were doing it, as
Yeah.
they were building it.
The other thing that's great about this is that it you know, you pointed out as soon as we pulled it up about how similar it is to Peru stuff, right? The nubs and everything.
Yeah.
Also, you know, Peru is, some of those walls there are famous for being, you know, all the blocks are different shapes, sizes. You know, you'll have tiny ones next to enormous ones in their fitity. Because they're building a pyramid here, they are doing it in regular layers. Courses is what these are called. But you can tell that each individual block is very different from the ones it's next to. Like these two are
No,
narrow, this
like
one's got a
what?
serious angle to it. This one matches the angle but then straightens it out
too
here.
long.
This one's
Right.
kind of square. Some of these are really long. Like, you know, they're, in other words, every block is completely different from every other block.
Right.
So it has the same sort of like non-homogeneous style as Peru, except that because it's done in courses like this, you know, they have regular layers. And then let's go around to the side. We can see this other flattened surface here. This is around the east side of the pyramid. There's
Oh,
another
wow.
flattened face there.
Oh wow, and the angle.
Yeah, it got this beautiful sort of reverse keystone in there.
What is that?
That's really strange.
Is that the only one you saw like that?
Yeah.
Trapezoid.
Yeah, if it was flipped over, it would be like a keystone for an arch. But it's, you know, it's like upside down for some reason. But yeah, so there's this flat surface, and the archaeologists have come in and cleared this area out because there's a sort of exterior temple in this area. So they dug all this stuff out and removed all the rubble.
It's possible that thing is a door.
It could be a door. People, yeah. Is it an entrance?
Right.
Doors back then were really hardcore.
Doors were fucking crazy back in the day.
Yeah, it is a really strange.
That is wild.
So we kind of showed you this. The pyramid itself has this angle, 51 degrees.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, so they built it out of the limestone courses. Then you start stacking the granite facing stones on it, and they're sort of puffy or whatever.
Right.
Then you set up survey equipment, and you figure out where your finished flat face will be, this line here. And then you flatten those, first 2 or 3 courses there like this. Then you can use that flat surface to continue facing the pyramid all the way up, knowing you don't have any missing. You won't have any holes in your stone.
Oh, okay.
So that's the idea. The diagrams can help sort of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And then when you're done, if you have time, which these people didn't, you flatten the whole thing and you have this beautiful flat granite face.
What is your guys' wildest fucking out there theory of what the pyramids were?
I think part of our thing is like we have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone through
Sometimes I think that's the wildest thing that we say, because people are like, what do you think it is? And we're like, we don't know. And then people are like, what?
Yeah.
You don't have any idea? Right?
It's just like
What's
you
your
look at-
favorite theory?
Here's what I will say about it. It's hard to believe that a society would support a system that required that immense amount of labor and planning and engineering, all that, for no other reason than to bury like one tyrant.
100%.
Yeah.
So the question I ask is, what did it provide the civilization or the society of people that agreed to do this? Now, people make the argument, that was they just had slaves and they just made them do whatever they wanted. It's hard to imagine that you could make that work. I don't know. I just think that it had to benefit the society in some way. So
Yeah.
I do like Chris
The
Dunn's
power
idea.
plant idea is cool. 'Cause
Yeah,
It's like, it benefits
something.
everyone.
It benefits everyone. Everyone agrees. Like, yes, we should take on this monumental task, right? Because that it's going to benefit society. So it wouldn't surprise me if we found out in some way that it did have a function. And I
think it's really hard to ignore the reverse engineering that Chris has done on it,
Yeah.
and the ideas he's come up with, and he's even remodeled some of like the shafts and stuff like that with the chemicals and stuff. He's recreated that to prove that those would have worked in that way.
That's the other thing is there's something that, like Yusuf would talk about, the pyramid. Well, it's just part of the pyramid complex, and you get to see this if you go on these tours with Ben and Yusuf. Around these pyramids, there will be other things in the area which are like granite
I hate this
stones
fucking
in the
guard,
pavement,
man.
deep under the paving tiles, because the paving around the pyramid is actually gigantic limestone tiles, as big as this table, 4 times as big as this table in some places. Underneath
One
those,
tile the size of this room. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
underneath those are some granite stones that have channels cut into them, like a channel like this that water would flow through or whatever, and they go into or from the pyramid, and so it looks like there's this whole system of like channels that had some liquid possibly moving through them, and bowl-shaped stones cut with these tiles over top of them. So something was going on under the floor around the whole pyramid area. Then there's the
Yo, what's up, like
basalt
Poker now? Where are ya?
tiles that show up at various pyramid sites. So it seems like there's a design that has multiple things outside the pyramid that are always around it, that also suggests some kind of function.
Thanks, man. Thanks,
And,
buddy.
People have looked at the possibility
Yeah,
of
it's like
chemical
chemistry,
processing.
metallurgy, like,
It wouldn't surprise me if it would ultimately be found out someday to be something like that.
yeah.
It's crazy to me that some fucking billionaire hasn't just paid a bunch of money to have it reverse engineered and recreated to see if they could do it.
I mean, bro, if I had $1 billion,
I mean, think about it. You could
I'd
buy
be a
a
pyramid
space.
in my yard.
Good, thanks. Nice.
You could reverse engineer or try to recreate the pyramid into a functioning thing. At least try to do it for less than you could buy Twitter for.
Wow.
It would cost less money.
You're right.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. That's the question. Like, would it actually cost less money than Twitter did? We don't know how expensive. You would need to say, you need to get a team of people, engineers and people, and be like, price this out for me.
I think Chris said it would be around $1 billion.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he said that on the podcast.
Listen, billionaires,
Does NASA really
our
own
area
the
of the
entire
country is a great place to build a pyramid.
Yeah, we have land if you would like to build a pyramid.
There's limestone there. There's granite. There's red granite nearby in a giant batholith.
Yep.
So come on down to the Texas Hill Country.
Yeah. That's what Chris was saying. If you wanted to rebuild the pyramids, you'd do it. There's a place in Texas that you would do it.
Yeah.
There's a place in Texas that has more. Of
Yes, they
these,
are.
What are they called? Those lights that come out of the ground.
Marfa.
Marfa.
Texas.
Yeah,
Yes, they
Marfa,
are.
Texas, that's what it was.
Yeah, he was talking about building it near the Earth energies. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
because
could build it out. near
Tesla
the planet.
towers.
That's his newest theory, the Tesla connection. His newest theory on it is that there was some sort of a jackhammer or device in the subterranean chamber that would like pound the ground and create seismic vibrations in the igneous rock beneath the pyramid that would create electron flow.
Oh, piezoelectric flow.
Yeah, up through the base of the pyramid, because it's 14 acres, I think it is.
No.
Between 13 and 14 acres.
Between 13 and 14 acres, and that would capture all that electron flow up through the bottom chamber, through the grand gallery, into the main chamber, and then around the edges there's these pits where they would pour chemicals that would somehow turn into liquid hydrogen that would then come down the shafts, and that would somehow create some sort of chemical reaction in the Queen's chamber, going up through the King's chamber. I can't remember it perfectly, but
And this is where, and then microwaves are being run through.
the
or something.
microwaves. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he
it's
thought there
making
was
a maser or something like that,
yes,
right? Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's like a
Thanks, man.
power
I appreciate
plant
that, buddy.
idea That is, it's like really fascinating, and it also points to an almost completely different.
Yeah, I put a lot of time in.
like line of thought in terms of generating power than we have in our modern times. We basically let's heat something up. Let's heat up water, turn it into steam, make the steam spin something, and then we can run magnets on the spinning thing and get electricity.
Right.
This is a completely different mindset,
Right.
which is really interesting.
This would have been free energy, right? Because he says there was a dome that was constructed around the pier.
Well, you have to.
You
build a
need $1
pyramid.
billion, so it's not free.
right. No, but what I mean by it is that the pyramids. His theory is that the pyramids would have put out whatever energy they created in his hypothesis would have created this free energy that you could just get out of the air.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah, like thinking of Tesla's wireless transmission.
Exactly.
Power. Yeah.
Exactly. Like his tower. What's his tower called?
Wardenclyffe Tower.
Wardenclyffe Tower. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was talking about actually turning a layer of the atmosphere into ionizing a layer of the atmosphere into a very
Who?
good conductor. And
Young
then you just-
Smooth
if
P
you attach
now.
that to a source of electricity, then you can just plug into it anywhere else on the planet and draw.
I don't
power.
know
And
how
that
to
would
do
put
shit. I
load
don't know,
on the
brother.
source.
But also that the source might possibly become the sun.
It could be, yes, because the sun is dumping an enormous amount of energy into the atmosphere all the time. So it could become a sort of free energy-ish thing. You know, it's
And
like the kind of thing
You'd
where
have to build a tower anywhere you wanted to grab it.
yeah, yeah.
And then the other two pyramids, he says that those could have been like backups, like backup generators or something.
Backup generators or test sites or who knows.
Right.
Yeah, I love those kinds of ideas, and the great thing about that is it's just like, let's do that. The idea that they were tombs is just no bodies were found. There's no writing. We've been in tombs in Egypt. They're full of beautiful artwork and writing. I mean, just covered. Every wall and the ceiling tells you a story. There's stars. It was painted.
The tunnels are big enough for like a procession of people to carry the body in, a box.
Oh my God, that is
Stay to
funny.
the bottom and then
There's
lay it in the
traps.
box. Yeah, there's big traps.
Yeah, pit traps with enormous stone doors on the other side. It's that you can tell it's a tomb, and then you get in the pyramid, and it's more like walking around in a machine.
Right. Yeah, he talks about that NASA engineer Friedman Freund.
This is in the new book.
Freund. Yeah, in the new book.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. I have the new book. I haven't started reading it yet.
It's fucking.
I can't wait. Yeah.
And Friedman Freund he's known for his study on the earthquake lights. So I guess there's a bunch of places around the world where he found there's a
Bro,
low seismic
seriously,
activity.
man.
And
Civil War
it could
might
be
break
days or
out.
weeks before
for
an earthquake
real.
happens. There's these lights that come up out of the earth, and they show up in the atmosphere. They look like UFOs. People have mistaken them for UFOs before. And
If
his
Trump wins
sort
this
of
election,
theory on this,
it
and
might
what he
be
wanted
like
to test,
BLM
is this could be a
2020
way to be early detection
all
for
over again.
earthquakes, to avoid catastrophe during earthquakes.
And
So if you
not
see these
that
earthquake
like it's not
lights coming
related
out,
to
and you're in a
Black
seismic activity,
Lives Matter, but
evacuate,
like
because there's going to be
there's
an
gonna be
earthquake.
protests in the
And it was
street,
proven. He
just
proved
like in
that this
2020.
actually happened. They did tests, they did studies, they
Fires
measured
and
exactly when
robberies.
these earthquake lights would come out of the ground and how much longer after that there would be an earthquake. And it's fascinating.
I
all
do
the
remember
studies.
you talking with Chris about this on your show.
Yeah. And then so what he did was they took two big pieces of granite, these big like
Back in the
long square chunks of granite, and they brought them into a lab, and they put some sort of electronic conductors on the ends of them, and they rubbed them together, and they found out it made electricity when they rubbed these pieces of granite together.
Yeah.
That
It's
really
piezo,
fucking blew my
like
mind.
a piezoelectric effect, right? Is
Yes.
That,
Yes.
yeah.
And-
Flexing the quartz crystals
No.
in the granite is going to generate electrical charge.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can't really disconnect some of these other structures around, like this.
Yeah. What is this place?
This is the Valley Temple.
This is the same construction style.
It's enormous limestone core blocks. Some of them weigh hundreds of tons. They're heavily eroded, and then they've been cased in granite. And this granite has been it's been finished and flattened, right? Like, so the pyramid we're looking at, a lot of them were sort of still puffy.
No.
These have been finished.
Right.
So inside this, if you pulled these granite stones off, you would have limestone right behind them.
Oh, okay.
I can show you.
Is there pieces where the granite is removed?
Yes. And you can see there's entire areas that used to be cased in granite that are not cased anymore, and the limestone itself has all these squarish, like divots in it, where you could see, like, okay, that was a block, that was the back side of a granite block that was sitting up against it, because it's got this rectangular divot in the limestone wall. Like the whole thing is made up of the whole limestone wall is made up of these divots of various sizes, so you can tell that it was completely encased in granite. And so it's not only were the granite stones mating faces like perfectly flat, but they were flattened up against the limestone to the point that the whole limestone wall is.
This is what the
There you go.
outside of the
Oh
temple
my
looks like.
God.
See the square indentations and rectangular marks on there? But of course, this limestone is heavily eroded.
Right.
So it's very, and you can see the size of the blocks. Like,
There
this
you
is
go.
another place.
Is
That's
what
the
kind of erosion is that?
That's the Kintkawas pyramid.
Yeah, this is Kent Kawas.
Okay.
That is a pyramid. That's the core of a pyramid. Now that is the bedrock limestone.
So they made the bottom of the pyramid out of the bedrock.
They shaped because it's
No.
actually like what they call a yardang, which is like a protrusion of the bedrock sticking up.
Mm-hmm.
They
Thanks,
shaped
brother.
the bedrock into a pyramid. It has the slopes.
Thanks,
and then
dude.
encased in
Yeah,
it.
buddy.
I've never seen this pyramid before.
Thanks, man.
It's right there on the Giza Plateau, but it's just so heavily eroded.
I appreciate that, my
and
dude.
apart.
Hey, look like, why does it look
Yeah,
like
the
it
new
comes out?
strat is
It goes
pretty
up, like
huge.
this
does.
third layer comes out
I mean, it's like a
wider
couple
than
years old.
The second
It
layer
might-
below it.
It might be the angle at which I'm taking it, but it's we're kind of
It's just eroded.
Yeah, it's very eroded.
And is that water erosion?
The photo in the hallway.
Is there any evidence of water erosion?
I'm not
this
qualified to answer.
This stuff up here is, very suggestive. The way
Yeah, it
these,
would be epic.
these vertical erosion
And,
marks.
and we're so
you know,
close. We are
but
so close.
I just don't know. This is definitely cut.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
These
Oh
are
yeah.
cut. But this is, this is the outside.
Appreciate you taking the time to
The
watch.
inside of
We've
is
duped
still
it a bunch.
finished in
We've
granite,
duped
but
it
somebody's
tonight.
come along and removed most
Yeah.
of all of the granite casing out here, but you can see where they were cut to set against this. These squares are where that granite was cut to set against it.
Yes.
So let me move back to the. But there's some interesting stuff in here when you're looking at this thing. The size of some of these.
Oh,
blocks,
shit.
Like this one
Oh yeah.
on the right here. Look at that thing.
Oh wow, look what you did there.
That's magic.
That's
That
visual.
is magical. I love that. Yeah, I love how that's what you were showing earlier. Some of the blocks they're like wider, and then the block that fits into it fits perfectly into that little 45-degree angle.
These guards,
This guy's
bro.
like 6'8", So that gives you an example of how
Guards, man.
tall this block is.
That's Chow Ming.
This dude is tall. Then this one on the other side is also an enormous block. But what's really interesting is when you get the corners, right? So the corners here. So I've drawn a line down the corner, and you'll notice that that giant block goes around the corner.
Oh my god.
No way. That's like
Oh my gosh, that was
just
sick.
arrogance. That's like
Thanks, man.
you're showing off.
Right.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, it's interesting because and also you'll see this one here. I didn't make any cool graphic for this one, but it's just like, here's your layer, but nope, let's drop it down a couple of inches for this next part, and let's give it a nice curve. Let's not make it square. Just let's make it harder on ourselves. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of a, what is it that, well, there's a quote from 2001: A Space Odyssey where he was talking about the geometric perfection of the monolith.
Oh,
was a kind of
thanks, man.
mathematical
That's nice of you,
arrogance,
buddy.
is what he said. Yeah. And it's sort of, I always think of that when you're looking at this stonework, because it's like they're just
It's
showing
nice of you, my dude.
So here's another corner in a different part of so you can sort of clearly see the corner line.
Yeah.
Right? And it looks like the corner, like, I don't have good pictures of it here, but when you walk up close and look up, that corner line has a regular radius. Like it was drilled from the top all the way down. with a
Aw,
single
come
tool.
on.
I don't know if that's how they did it, but it's
Square tool.
like, no, it's not. It's got a round.
So my
radius,
crux right
right?
now
So
is
the blocks
obviously
come
the
in
third and
there's a-
fourth
there's a
cam, but
curve
really it's
where the corner is. It
it's
doesn't-
the
it's not
third
perfect
cam.
degree, like there's a tiny bit of a curve, like there was a bit that was used.
It's like a 1-inch drill bit. They just went from
My
the top
third
of the
cam
wall
is
all the way
just
down,
terrible.
all the way down to the ground.
So yeah, so that's the corner.
Now I'm not saying that's what they did.
Right.
It's what it looks
Exceptionally
like.
bad.
It's
Right.
like the radius is the same.
And there's and it's continuous across the blocks. But also look, this block goes around the corner.
Inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
This block goes around
Both
the
of
corner.
all three of those go around.
This block goes around the corner, and this one goes around the corner. Here's a picture of another.
Oh my god.
So see that.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and notice the radius of the
I
corner,
don't
like
know,
it's
man.
actually
I don't
this
think
line
so.
going all the way down. Yeah.
Like
And
this
it's-
stonework,
Yeah.
It's clearly, it looks different than the face.
I don't know if we'll have an
Yeah,
answer.
like it's got a
stands
different.
out.
Yeah, it's got a different sort of aspect to it, and then you can
Different
see
grinding.
this one around
Maybe.
the corner, that one goes around the corner, this one
The
goes around
sun,
the corner.
yeah,
pretty
reflects differently
insane.
than the rest of it. Like,
Yes, and all the way up. They go around the corner, and they mostly alternate. And then just this is my favorite, right? Just in case you're in doubt about blocks.
I think I have to go
Yeah,
to
this
Egypt
block.
though to see it in
Oh
person. I have to see it.
God.
It is the fucking corner. So you start to
Maybe.
think, how big was this initially? Like this block has to go deep into the wall to the right and deep into the wall to the left and all the way back into the. That's a big damn block right there. And they've just cut one corner of it off to make it the corner of this wall.
That's absurd.
So this is what we came up with. Let's say that you want to have
This is a top-down view.
a top-down view. You want to make a chamber like we were just looking at,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So you build big limestone casing blocks. You make a big rectangular chamber here with limestone casing blocks. Then you case the interior in irregular granite, sort
Okay.
of puffy irregular granite. Now notice when you're looking at these that none of these blocks, these granite blocks, go around any corners.
Right.
Okay. Then you go out onto the top of those granite blocks and you find the place where you want the actual interior wall to be.
What?
This is where you want the surfaces of the wall to be. It's inside the stone right now.
Okay.
See? Then you drill 4 holes at the corners of that interior future wall. Then you go in with your magic granite flattening tool, whatever that is, and you remove all that granite. Now you have 4 blocks that go around corners.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you being here and everyone being
That
here
makes
watching
total
me
sense.
play
Yep.
We
this
know that they were removing- they were facing the
27-year-old
granite.
game.
So if you had 6 or 8 inches, we know that they were facing that pyramid at least 18 inches deep.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're going to go face it, this is what's going to happen in an inside corner.
And there's places we can look at later, like the Osirian, where they were in the process of facing the wall, and we can look at that too.
Yeah, the Osirian stuff is nuts.
Yeah. Well, one more thing in the Valley Temple is I'll just show you some of the joins. I'm just putting my fingers up there for reference, but there's a horizontal join and a vertical one here, right here, and here. They're almost invisible.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. You can
Yeah.
barely. The only reason you can see it is because there's like slight erosion and there's slight discontinuities in the crystalline structures, basically.
Right. Otherwise, it would be invisible.
Yeah. So,
It's just so crazy that
this
there's
is another one.
Oh my lord.
Yeah. So that's this is an outside corner. And it's also very heavily eroded. It's really interesting how deeply eroded this granite is. And granite is, not a weak stone. How long does it take for it to basically begin to decompose like this?
It is one of the hardest stones, right? It's like one of the top 3 hardest stones.
Yeah, it's a 7, I think, on the Mohs
7,
scale. 9 being, or is it diamond is a 10 or is it a 9? I can't remember. I think it's a 10.
I thought it was a 10.
Yeah. So it's 7, and we had a geologist on
Like
one of
what?
the tours with us.
Come on,
He
man.
would look at this, he'd stand there looking at this, decomposition of the granite. And he's just like, I'm like, how long does this take, Chuck? And he's like, a long time. A long time. He wouldn't commit to a number. He just said a long damn time.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's just so wild to me. Like, just try to imagine what those tools would have looked like. And there's zero evidence of any of these tools.
No,
and no
the
remains
back boost,
Yeah.
man.
from any of these machines that they would have used to do this.
No known. Yeah.
No known.
I would love for there to be, someday somebody finds an unopened tool
An unopened one.
chamber.
Well, Chris Dunn talks about you've heard about him, the tuning forks that he mentions.
Yeah, you mean the ones at the base of the staffs? Is that what you're talking about? Or-
He said there was a row of giant tuning forks in the Grand Gallery going up to the King's Chamber.
Oh, the
metal tuning forks, because he shows that they're like the shapes of them. What he hypothesizes they would have looked like whenever the explosion happened in the King's Chamber.
What?
It would have been like a electronic explosion, and there's burn marks on the top of the Grand Gallery going all the way up where those tuning forks would have been. And he superimposed a graphic showing what they looked like. And he thinks that somebody stole those tuning. I don't know if maybe
How about
there's
that?
a theory.
The Helmholtz resonators? Is that what he's talking about?
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
They're
But
kind of a tuning fork.
There's
sort
a
of.
conspiracy theory I found.
Come
out
on,
there
bro.
that somebody found a photo of some of these tuning forks. They're like hidden away somewhere.
Oh, man.
And somebody like stripped them out of there and they're hiding them somewhere.
Yeah, that's believable because if you have ancient tools and they're made of metals and other valuable things, and then civilization collapses and a long time goes by, and then you have people who are just trying to survive, and they find sort of rusting, degrading remnants of tools. They're going to peel bits of metal off to make knives,
Right.
spears.
Right.
They're going to scavenge it. And whatever time doesn't destroy, people will destroy if they can.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there's just going to be nothing left. And
But if they used this, hypothetically, if they were using diamond cutters to cut this stuff, we would still have the diamonds, like the remnants of the diamond, right?
well, our diamond
Well,
cutters,
and there's
are coated in dust.
Yeah, there's an entire desert full of sand.
Yeah, and it's
You try to find a
sandy
diamond
desert.
and it's grains.
We talked about this. Yeah, you're just sifting sand, hoping that one of those little bits of silica is actually a diamond. It's
Yeah, but wouldn't the structural integrity of the diamond, if it was a blade, wouldn't it still be intact, or would it erode to dust?
Oh,
No,
well,
it-
we're thinking of dust to start with. So you have if they
our diamond blades are just coated in diamond dust.
Oh, ours are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the cheapest kind
like
of
you-
diamond to get is like this dusty bort stuff, right?
you get a metal blade and you have some way of setting the diamonds into the metal. So as the metal is wearing away, it wears away, and there's a new diamond in there.
Oh,
And that
that's how
starts
they do it.
scratching the stone until that one gets worn off, falls out, and then there's more underneath, and you can keep wearing that blade down that's got embedded with diamond. Studded.
I understand. I was picturing like a pure diamond saw blade.
Yeah.
Shows how much I know.
I'd like to have a diamond sword. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
cool to find.
Holy shit. That would be sick.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I don't, the same guy Chuck was talking about making, kind of doing this as a test by pouring. I can't remember exactly what he was doing, but pouring some kind of metal that he had put a bunch of diamond into some kind of grinding disc, and you can He's trying to kind of do these little experiments to say, well, maybe they were doing it this way. And you don't have to have diamond. You just have to have something harder than the stone that's in there, or at least as hard as.
But there's not many options.
There's not a whole lot of options.
Yeah.
What is there besides diamond?
Well, quartz would cut most of granite, except the quartz in the granite. That's the problem.
But it will scratch itself.
It will scratch itself. But the hardest thing in granite is the quartz.
You're just gonna wear through so many bits.
Yeah.
I just don't. They should be everywhere.
Yeah.
This is great because it gives people a real idea of how far away these places, these complexes are.
Yeah, Giza and Menkaure are up there in the north, near the big delta.
Right.
The Osirian is 300 miles south up the Nile, and that's the next place we look at here in this. It's next to the temple of Seti I. That's what this is this is the temple. This is above ground.
Okay.
Big, massive, beautiful temple. It's one of the, it's still got its roof on it, which is a lot of the Egyptian, these dynastic temples no longer have the roofing blocks on. So this one does, and it's cool to go in there and just, it's dark and cool, and there's these holes that shine these beams of light down in certain parts that move around during the day. It's an amazing experience to walk around, and the carvings are beautiful. But then you get down into, this thing. This is the Osirian. So this is outside the temple, and it's like 30 to 40 feet below ground surface. So it's underneath the ground, like a basement. This is looking down into it.
Holy cow.
So you can see, if you're looking in the back there, you can see the cliff walls there. That's all Nile sediment. So this thing is deep down in Nile sediments, and you can see that it's in the water table. The green at the bottom there is water.
Right.
But this is just the top of this structure. It actually goes down another like 30 meters. It's got multiple levels below this. And
that we've never accessed.
Well, I think people have dug down into it. Yeah, there's some very old pictures from before the dam was built when they were digging it out, and you can see that these were deep pits. Which is part of what makes this structure so strange and mysterious. Like just like the pyramids, when you're walking around in here, you just don't feel like people were supposed to be walking around in here.
In here.
Yeah. You sort of feel like, like you accidentally found the basement access to a skyscraper building, and you're down there where all the machinery is, and you're not supposed to be there.
Wow.
So these things full of water would have been incredibly deep pits.
Come on.
Before they're full of water and material and dust.
Could you see through the water?
No, it's
Oh, I can't see. Come on, bro.
There are
Like,
some areas where you can see through the water
man.
where the sediment and stuff that has basically filled up these deep pits you can see down there.
Okay.
But there's also a stairway that just disappears into the water.
yeah.
You can't see down there.
We need to get scuba divers.
Strabo wrote about it and called it.
Aren't
He
you-
said it was referred to as the well.
Yeah, I know how to
You're ready
scuba
to do this, right?
No, I'm not ready to scuba dive in that shit.
Oh, come on.
I mean,
done
you
any cave diving?
need the same kind of scuba divers that were like scuba diving in Chernobyl. Those guys got balls. My balls aren't big enough.
Oh, check out
Oh,
the
the
top.
deal
You see the
face,
top,
yeah,
the
thanks,
block
man.
on the top first pillar.
Yes.
Alright, I'm gonna
Let's
take
put
like a
that
5 or 10
Oh,
minute
yeah.
break. Just give me.
Yeah,
I
we're
need to like
recording
take
this
a
stuff.
little
Those are
chill
recording
break.
marks,
I'll be
right?
back. Maybe.
These dashed lines.
Wait.
Is that what you're
I
talking
will
about?
be back.
It's like a
But I
notch
mean,
cut
yeah,
I
out.
don't know.
got a
little
I'll
notch on
I'll
that
keep
top
playing,
one.
but
Oh,
I'm
here,
gonna
yeah,
take a
yes,
10-minute break.
Yeah.
Thank
like
you.
it's it's made they've cut it like this so it's not going to move or something. It sets up against this block. There are also I can't remember if I've got pictures of this, but they sort of tongue and grooved these.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can show you that in a minute.
That's
It's-
genius.
yeah.
But that column was basically split in half almost.
Yeah, but look at this thing. It's hard to describe the sheer size of these columns.
This is all granite also.
Thanks,
It's
brother.
all granite, and it's
Now, okay, how do the people that give you these, when you're going on these tours of these places, what do these tour guides say about this stuff? When you say, how do they do this? What do they say?
they don't say anything. Like it's there's no I mean, I haven't heard. Yusuf will walk around in here and
I
ask
would
questions
feel like an
just like the
idiot
rest of it.
giving a tour of this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If the tour guide tells you how they did this, it's not a good tour guide
Yeah.
because we don't know.
Right. So there's no explanation.
I mean,
There's
if
no
there,
accepted explanation.
if there's a standard, well, the standard explanation is that SETI's engineers built this thing, right? So it's New Kingdom that they built it, but it doesn't look anything like his temple. It's not the same at all, and I'll show some comparison pictures here.
The standard explanation would be hemp
Manpower,
and rope and
yeah.
sand and copper tools
Copper
and a
tools.
bunch of
Pounding
guys
stones.
dragging stones and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's the standard.
I love the video, or the clip on Ben's video, where he's like on the pyramid looking down at a tourist using the pounding stone. He's like, "You're gonna be there a while, mate."
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's also interesting how they, you can see the water lines on the bottom of this column.
Yeah.
Because the water
Oh, yeah,
table
yeah.
would go up and down. And just the enormous size of these columns. So there is a picture of a dynastic temple. And just look at the difference in everything. The dynastic temple is covered in art and writing. Every surface is telling you a story or giving you a picture of the night sky or the stars or the pharaohs or...
And those columns are stacked pieces, correct?
Yes, those are column drums. They're
Yeah.
discs, basically stacked up. And they did this in a very similar way. They stacked up these puffy discs, then they came back and ground them into nice circular columns.
But it's also limestone or sandstone,
Yes.
much, much softer.
Then they
Okay.
covered it in plaster, and then they carved the plaster.
Yeah.
Got it.
And when you're walking around in these places, and look, notice the tops of the columns, like each one is like a plant. It's a lotus, or it's all these various different flower types up there. It's beautiful. But you feel like people were supposed to be in here, looking at the pictures, reading the stories. It's open and airy and sort of, and beautiful. And then you're in places like the Assyrian or the pyramid, and you're just like, this is a machine. I'm not supposed to be in here. This is a giant pump or a power
Yes.
plant or...
Yeah, the Osirian is definitely just the weirdest place to be because
What's so weird about it?
it's weird because there's no weird in the sense of, do I belong here?
Yeah.
Because the walkway, the places where you can actually go are like there's too narrow. And if it was empty of water and all the rubble, it would be a huge drop off there.
Yeah.
I mean, OSHA would be all over this thing. You gotta have handrails. No, but there's no room to walk. Like in front of that small door back there,
Yeah.
there's like a ledge about a foot wide or something.
Yeah, well, I'll show some pictures of that in a minute for sure.
So it's just strange. It's like, there's no place like that in any of the temples.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you go in the temples, it's open and the floor is big enough for multiple people to walk side by side. The doorways are large,
But it's still a doorway,
It is.
which is so confusing.
It's a doorway to a tiny room.
Have you
with
ever
no
been,
decorations?
Have you been in there was we grew up in Georgia and there was some like abandoned base, like Fort Benning. I can't remember what it was. Some
It was
like,
it was like barracks.
yeah, barracks and other things and like large buildings, and they had big concrete slabs, but all the stuff inside had been taken out. So in the concrete slab there would be just unexplained sockets and holes where machinery used to sit.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, you feel like that in the pyramids and in some of these places where you're looking at these and you're like, something was mounted here. Sort of like what you were talking about with Chris saying in the Grand Gallery, that there were these tuning forks or helm holes resonator mounted in these slots going all the way up the Grand Gallery.
Right.
You look at the, what is this little alcove? What is this hole in the floor? It's like stuff was here. It's just gone because it was metal or it was valuable or it was the machine that was taken out. Now we just are left with the superstructure or whatever.
Right.
You can see quarrying attempts here. That's what this.
Those notches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they would make these notches and they'd put wooden wedges or something in here and try to split the rock.
But that was much later,
Much
right?
later.
Yes, way
right.
later. Yeah.
And probably that rock was buried in sand.
Yeah, it was buried up to here, so they didn't know how deep it was. So they just made notches, hoping to get this corner off there, not realizing that the thing went all the way down to here. So then
They
when
just
they
gave
tried to
up.
split it, it just they broke the top off, and then they quit.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's a guess. No one really knows. The
Right.
other thing is look how the columns are actually set in their own
That's bizarre.
countersunk sockets.
Can you tell how far down that column goes?
Well, that's interesting because here's another one. You can see it's in its own socket. But then there's this in the middle. So, and you can see it's very faint here, but you can see around the edge that here's the socket, and then there's this deep part.
So
can
there's a small
see-
depression.
There's a small depression around the edge, like what the other
Oh,
ones are
so they
sitting.
like notched the bottom of the stone that was sitting in there to
Yeah.
where that it would cover
That's-
the outside, but then go deeper.
That's
So-
the question.
So instead of just something simple like this, where you're sitting a big block down on your floor, you
Right.
actually built something more complex and interesting like this. And then you
Yes.
plug that in.
That is impressive.
So you got these enormous, multiple 100-ton or whatever. I don't know what are these estimated to weigh.
I
Kyle? You
don't
don't know.
know.
100
Yeah.
tons maybe. These columns, and you're like, okay, if I put that down, it's not going to move. But no, we're going to make sure by we're going to plug it into the floor.
That's what
Makes my brain hurt.
that's actually a question. We don't know because we haven't looked at the bottom of one of these columns or whatever.
Yeah,
but
this is weird.
So this is what Kyle was talking about. You're trying to walk, and you got to kind of like Indiana Jones your way around here, leaping across, puddles of radioactive water. And it's
Well, it could also have been like a wooden walkway over this.
it could have
It
been,
could have
yeah,
been,
there
yeah.
could have been a floor, but that thing that we're looking at there that's full of water was a very, very deep pit. Like there are old pictures where it just goes down into darkness. So if
Really?
you fell off there, you would break your neck. Yeah, it's not an insubstantial thing. It's so.
But you're
it's-
right. I mean, there could have been a wood floor.
Right, you could, or
Easily.
or something else covering it. Yes,
Can
exactly.
we find the pictures of this with no water?
Maybe he can look them up online. Old pictures of the Osirian when they were first excavating it,
Syrian excavation.
like Osiris, Irian.
Osiron.
I always have to look up the spelling of that word every time.
Osiron.
Osireon or something like that.
Osiron.
Osirian, yeah. So this is looking the other way in this same channel. Look at those. These are the only 3 that I know of remaining roofing blocks, the ceiling blocks. They're huge that cross the top. So these massive things, and they're what do you think, Kyle? 24,
Probably like 24,
30
25 feet up
yeah.
there. And the blocks themselves are maybe like 5 foot thick.
Yeah. So it's like 5 feet thick up this way, and so what you're looking at here, that you got a column, and then on top of the column are these things spanning the
Like a
columns.
lintel?
Yeah, a lintel going across, and then across that were these gigantic, these things.
And most of those have been.
They're all gone. Yeah. They're part of this rubble, whatever. There's pieces of them lying around. And then you're looking at this outer wall.
So are those like parts that stick out more? Are those like parts of those knobs that were
Yeah.
the
like
nubs, yeah.
the nubs? Yeah.
Yeah, so you notice that this wall has like the blocks again are unfinished. They're puffy, right? And they have nubs on them. There's 2 nubs there. Then you can see here, like there's just a whole bunch of interesting stuff here. There's indentations. There's this one here, and then these inserts, these little tiny inserts.
Now, we saw a whole lot of these things, and
Yeah.
initially you imagine like this tiny little rock goes all the way through to the back, like it's a big. That's not what it does. It's actually possibly it looks like it was a cosmetic fix. So
Okay.
this. The one on the left would be a better example. That the corner of that block may have been chipped off.
Now this is the exterior, right?
This is inside.
This
this
would be
is inside.
The
inside.
Osirian has no exterior because it's in a
it's
hole.
underground.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But basically, if the right corner of that block had been broken or chipped away, then instead of just leaving it a void, they carve out a little square notch and then put a little block in there. It doesn't go all the way through. And there was one on an outside corner that we confirmed does not go all the way through the wall. It just was to fix a corner that had been chipped away.
Yeah, I used to have that picture in here. I took that one out.
How
Sorry.
dare you take that picture
Sorry,
out?
I
Wow.
took- yeah. So if you broke the corner off here and then you just insert this in too, so that when you finish the wall, you don't have a hole, right?
Right,
That's the
right.
idea. But it's also interesting how all
Now,
of this.
this is
stuff-
granite, or no? This is
This is like a.
This is granite.
Is
Yes.
it granite? Yeah.
that is
Inside those rooms
Is quartzite or something.
There's some, there is some other kind of stone.
Yeah, but this outside here is granite. And then, like, the other thing, notice here, along this central block is this angle, or the
Right.
layer change.
Course changing.
Like, the whole course just shifts down an inch or two. around this sort of central small block here in the middle. Like, I love these kinds of little design details.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the whole surface, you can see, again, there's nubs all
everywhere.
over the place. And then there's these strange, interesting scoop marks. Those are a couple of clear ones, like somebody was scooping material off of the surface of the block. And then there's this strange thing that we found when we were looking at this. I'll just show you this real quick. There is something here. Where this little tiny sliver
friends,
of
I
this
think
block
I'm,
goes underneath the other one.
I think
Now,
I'm
this
done
is
for
what
today.
this is
I'll
what I
probably
start
play
thinking about.
tomorrow.
The engineer is just like, you know what this wall needs right here?
Yeah.
It's from
Yeah,
Play-Doh.
I need this block to have a half-inch thick thing that sticks out to the left. Like,
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous. So I think this is
Play-Doh
another
Republic.
example of the building of this wall actually shapes the wall itself.
Thank you for being
yeah.
here. I really appreciate you watching
In other words,
don't
me
think there
of
was
all
an engineer
people,
that demanded
but
it?
I'm going to
Like,
sign off.
I need this whole layer.
That's functional right there.
I need this whole layer to drop
What's
down
up, Jersey
1/4
Vibes? How are you
of an
doing?
inch.
I'm gonna read
And I
somebody.
want it to happen inside the.
To get it resonating at the right frequency, you had to have that.
Thank you for
little
being here.
notch.
Man, if that's the case, you'd have to give serious credit to those contractors. 'Cause
Yeah.
they would be like,
Okay, bro, thanks,
yeah,
bro.
we're actually going to do that.
Yeah, we got no problems doing that.
Nowadays, they'd be like,
Well,
No.
the other thing about this entire job, like looking at it as a job site, is that everything is nothing is straight up and down. These outer walls are very slightly angled out, like this. Yes, outwards. And then all the columns are very slightly tapered inward as they go up. And it does this weird thing with negative space, right?
so the space that's far away from you is bigger than the space right in front of you.
So it all looks the same size because